Shortly after receiving my university acceptance letter, my fiancé drowned, and his body was never recovered. I gave up my studies to care for my would-be in-laws as their daughter-in-law and look after my fiancé's younger sister. In the end, I fell gravely ill from years of overwork. After my in-laws passed away, I suddenly collapsed into a coma just before blacking out. I saw the man who was supposed to have died 40 years ago, returning to the village in glory with his wife and children. Those 2 children, aren't they the abandoned kids my sister-in-law adopted? I was so enraged I coughed up blood, and then he, in his capacity as my husband, personally signed the papers to withdraw my treatment. When I opened my eyes again, I had gone back 40 years. This time, I immediately grabbed my fiancé's mother and jumped into the river with her. Wan Chen Kaiwei, you jinx, my son is dead, and you can't even shed a single tear. Wang Jinhua's voice came at me like a dull, chipped sickle. Hacking with a blunt viciousness, she clawed at my collar, her nails digging into my flesh, as if she wanted to tear me apart on the spot. Yet, not a single tear fell from her eyes. The riverbank was crowded with villagers. Several men were wading through the murky water, calling out Qian Weidong's name as they searched. In my past life, I was madly in love with Qian Weidong. I not only forced my father, the village chief, to swallow his pride and secure him a university recommendation, but I also poured all of my family's money into building a tiled roof house for his family. Later, my father was reported, lost his position, and died at home without the money for medical treatment. Meanwhile, I was busy at the hospital caring for my sister-in-law who had come down with chickenpox. By the time I returned to the village, my father was already buried. To raise the money for his funeral, my sister had married the man known throughout the county as the living king of hell. Thinking of this, I clenched my fists. Thankfully, fate gave me a second chance. Just today, Qian Weidong received his acceptance letter and was so excited he went around the whole village making a fuss, saying he'd collect pebbles for me. Then, in a sudden accident, he was swept away by the water, his body never found. Wang Jinhua put on the whole act of a grief-stricken, maddened mother. Seeing this, I immediately tore up my own acceptance letter and foolishly knelt before her, swearing to fulfill Qian Weidong's filial duties and serve their entire family. But in this life, as I looked at her twisted, aged face, all I felt inside was a cold sneer. Auntie, my eyes reddened, my voice trembled, as if I were utterly grief-stricken. Wang Jinhua thought I had taken the bait. She immediately raised her voice and wailed, my son is gone, I won't live either. Weidong, your mother is coming to join you. With that, she made as if to throw herself into the river. I was closest to her, pretending to hold her back. I actually grabbed her and quickly pulled her away from the crowd. Auntie, I'm coming with you. With that, I clamped onto her and turned to charge straight for the river. Aunt Jinhua, Kaiwei, don't do anything foolish. Someone from the onlooking crowd cried out in alarm. Wang Jinhua clearly hadn't expected me to pull this stunt. She froze for a second, then her face changed dramatically, and she hissed in a low voice, what are you doing? Let go of me. As if I'd let her get away with it, I turned my body slightly. From a distance, it would look like Wang Jinhua was the one dragging me along. I ran while crying out, Weidong, wait for us, we're coming to be with you. Wang Jinhua panicked, she couldn't swim, and jumping through that breach meant deep water. It would be the death of her. Let go of me, she shrieked, her voice cracking with strain. Several villagers rushed forward to pull us back, but I had already charged to the edge of the dam. Below us lay the abyss, and no one dared get any closer. Help, help. Wang Jinhua was utterly frantic now, screaming at the top of her lungs, Qian Monsong, you old fool, come save me. Qian Monsong, Qian Weidong's father, had been hiding in the crowd feigning grief, but seeing his wife was really about to be dragged into the water by me, he finally snapped. He rushed forward and shoved me away, shouting, Chen Kaiwei, have you lost your mind? I staggered back a few steps from the push, using the momentum to shove Wang Jinhua halfway over the dam's edge. Covering my face, I wailed, Uncle, don't stop me, what's the point of me living anymore? Qian Monsong was hopping mad with frustration, but everyone in the village knew he couldn't swim. All he could do was glare at me with pure venom. I suddenly grabbed Wang Jinhua and, pretending to lose my footing, pulled her down with me as I jumped. Seeing this, a few strong swimmers on the bank hurriedly started taking off their clothes. I shouted at the top of my lungs, Undertow. At that, their families clung to the men desperately, refusing to let them attempt a rescue. There was no undertow. I'd been an excellent swimmer since childhood. With a few kicks, I surfaced steadily, using Wang Jinhua as a stepping stone. Wang Jinhua was in a sorry state. Before long, she wasn't even moving anymore. Time ticked by second. After what felt like an eternity, splash, a figure suddenly burst from the reeds. Mother, the entire place fell deathly silent in an instant. Everyone's eyes widened as they stared at the man who should have been dead, Qian Weidong. His face was deathly pale, his lips trembling. Clearly, he had been forced into a corner and had no choice but to show himself. It's a ghost. The timid women were too frightened to open their eyes, but the others could see perfectly clearly. Qian Weidong was not dead at all. Too, as the screams erupted on the riverbank, Qian Weidong was dragging Wang Jinhua, limp as a dead pig, out of the reeds. He was fully dressed, showing no sign of having been in the water. He even had a reed stalk dangling from his mouth, a ridiculous sight. Weidong, Wang Jinhua spat out a mouthful of water. The moment she recognized her son, the wrinkles on her face froze in shock. I pointed sharply at the soaked blue shirt on the bank. Weidong, you're alive. Then why did you leave your clothes here? The crowd erupted into chaos. Old Li's son suddenly charged forward, grabbing Qian Weidong by the collar. You bastard, I nearly got a cramp diving in to save you. Why were you hiding? Qian Weidong's face went deathly pale, the reed stalk falling from his mouth. Faking your death to swindle the condolence money. Is that it? Someone shouted from the crowd, and everyone's faces darkened. Qian Monsong, your family's got some nerve. That condolence fund was scraped together penny by penny from every household in the village. How dare you even think about stealing it? Just then, a hunched figure burst from the crowd and delivered a savage kick to Qian Weidong's chest. You bastard, I'll kill you. I'm Erguzi's father. Erguzi is still lying in the clinic, all because he was out looking for you. Qian Weidong, his calloused hands grabbed Qian Weidong by the collar, eyes clouded with rage. And here you are, playing dead. Everyone just saw it. Erguzi was searching for him by the reed marshes, took a wrong step into a hidden current, and by the time we fished him out, he was pale as a ghost. Unbelievable. Qian Weidong was just a few steps away from Erguzi. Yet he didn't utter a single word. Qian Weidong was kicked so hard he tumbled twice on the ground, his new clothes now caked in mud. Wang Jinhua lunged forward to protect her son, but several women grabbed her by the shoulders and held her back. She had no choice but to turn her fury on me. Chen Kaiwei, you little tramp, you set my son up on purpose, didn't you? I always knew you were no good. Mark my words. As long as I'm alive, you'll never set foot in the Qian family. All eyes turned to me in unison. After all, my father, the village party secretary, was well liked. Out of respect for him, if I pleaded for leniency, everyone would have no choice but to relent. Everyone knew I was a hopeless romantic, but I just gave a soft, dismissive snort and said calmly, fine, from now on, I'm cutting all ties with your family. We're done for good. The shrill crackle of static from the loudspeaker shattered the momentary peace. Secretary Chen, there's a call from the county. In the crowd, my father furrowed his brow and hurriedly turned to rush back, with me scrambling to follow. In my past life, when this call came, I was kneeling in the Qian family's courtyard, begging their forgiveness for my role in Qian Weidong's death. Now, I followed closely behind my father, knowing full well what was about to happen. From behind came the sound of Qian Weidong's agonized shriek and the wailing cries of Wang Jinhua and her husband. What? Father stammered, glancing at me out of the corner of his eye. Qian Weidong, that young man is quite outstanding. I snatched the phone and quickly explained how he had faked his death today. Secretary Chen was just about to report the situation to the county and request they revoke Qian Weidong's recommendation. After hanging up, father stared at me wide-eyed, his expression complex. Yeah, how could you bear to do it? I looked at him calmly and said, Father, didn't you always teach me that the collective comes before the individual? Qian Weidong has wounded the feelings of the whole community. He deserves to face the consequences. Father was taken aback, clearly not believing that someone as hopelessly lovesick as me could have such insight. Sweetheart, have you had a falling out with Weidong? Just then, the courtyard gate swung open and my sister, Chen Kaiping, rushed in breathlessly, her face etched with worry. Kaiwei, she grabbed my hand and thrust a small purse into it. Don't do anything rash. This is the money from selling this year's grain. Take it to the Qian family first. Aunt Jinhua might calm down if you do. Why should I give it to her? I smiled, pushing the money back. I took a cloth bundle from the drawer and opened it in front of father and my sister. Inside was a neat stack of banknotes. This, my sister's eyes widened. Isn't this the money you saved to repair the Qian family's house? Their construction has already started. This money, not anymore. I nodded, pushing the money toward father. Dad, our own roof needs fixing, otherwise, the winter drafts will come in, and your cough will start up again. Father was stunned, and my sister was utterly dumbfounded. You're not giving it to the Qians anymore, my sister stammered. I let out a light chuckle. Didn't Qian Weidong give me the cold shoulder? Why should I bother courting his favor? My sister drew a sharp breath, looking at me as if she didn't know me at all. If we fix the roof, Dad won't fall seriously ill from the cold this winter, and the tragedy that follows won't happen. 3. Qian Weidong was losing his patience. After 3 days without me going to him to make peace, he sent Qian Xiaohong over. Crash. The courtyard gate was kicked open. Qian Xiaohong stood in the doorway with her hands on her hips, her brand new red plaid shirt glaringly bright in the sunlight. Chen Kaiwei, she shrieked, hiding away and taking it easy. Are you? My old house is torn down, and we're waiting on your money to raise the roof beam for the new one. Hand it over, now. I slowly lifted my head from the well. The clear water in the bucket reflected her haughty, arrogant face. In my past life, I treated her like my own sister, yet after my death, she defended her brother, shamelessly claiming I was the one who strayed, and that he remarried out of a broken heart. Well, look who it is. I flicked the water droplets from my hands. You're a grown woman, I'm no kin to your family, yet here you are, brazenly demanding money from me. Have you no shame? Qian Xiaohong's face stiffened, then she jutted her chin out defiantly. So that's why you haven't been looking for my brother lately. You're worried you won't be let into our house. Then why all this nonsense? You go to the county today and buy blue bricks, the best kind. She pulled a crumpled list from her pocket. And get these too. I took the list and gave it a quick glance. 200 top-grade blue bricks, 10 bags of cement, 2 buckets of red paint. Well, I'll be damned, they're trying to take me for a sucker. She was still droning on about something. I just scooped up a shovelful of chicken manure and flung it right at her head. Ah, she retched, tears and snot mingling into a foul, muddy trail down her face. Chen Kaiwei, have you lost your mind? I have. Otherwise, why would I have treated an ungrateful wretch like you as my own sister in my past life? I even cut out part of my liver twice to save her so-called adopted son, ruining my health for good. Only a madman wouldn't have seen your treacherous heart. You'll smear my name all over the village once I'm gone. I raised the iron tongs and struck her without a second thought. Get out. You're all a bunch of parasites. So poor the only thing you've got left is your nerve. A crowd had gathered at the door to watch the spectacle. Qian Xiaohong, still young after all, felt utterly humiliated to be seen in such a state. You, she cried, I'm telling my brother. What's the big deal about spending a little of your money? You're so stingy, you don't deserve to be my sister-in-law. So I'm stingy, am I? That Dacron shirt you're wearing was bought by me, wasn't it? The cost of this one shirt could feed your whole family for a month. If you don't get lost right now, I'll strip it right off your back and show you just how stingy I can be. Qian Xiaohong turned pale with fright, clutching her chest. She practically fled in panic, leaving a chorus of mocking laughter behind her. Before dawn the next day, I tucked the money into my pocket and set off for the county town. A state-run store. I happened to run into Qian Weidong, dressed in new clothes, the bruises on his face already fading. By his side was Wen Yalan, wearing a floral print dress. She was also the woman I saw him with just before my death in my previous life. His wife, Qian Weidong, deliberately looked down his nose at me, refusing to even glance my way, speaking to Wen Yalan with an air of utter arrogance. Wen Yalan walked up to me with a stern expression. Chen Kaiwei, right, you need to apologize to Weidong. I was speechless. Wen Yalan held her chin high, her eyes full of contempt, her hand unconsciously stroking her lower abdomen. I thought for a moment, by now, she and Qian Weidong must have conceived a child, a pair of twin boys with congenital liver dysfunction. In my past life, after the child was born, Qian Xiaohong brought it home, claiming she found it on the road and wanted to adopt it. I cherished her kindness, treated both children as my own, and even donated part of my liver multiple times. Who would have thought they were actually the bastard children of that despicable couple? However, in this day and age, getting pregnant before marriage is hardly a respectable thing. I stared at her belly, secretly scheming in my mind. I deliberately placed the cloth bundle in my hand onto the counter, completely ignoring Wen Yalan. The bundle was bulging, clearly stuffed with a considerable amount of money. Qian Weidong snorted coldly and turned his face away, but the corner of his eye kept darting glances at my cloth bundle. I knew exactly what he was thinking. This lovesick fool Chen Kaiwei must have brought the money here to beg for reconciliation. Kaiwei, Wang Jinhua piped up, having sidled over at some point, her voice loud enough for the whole supply and marketing cooperative to hear. Our Weidong is about to start university. The county has approved it. Now, seeing as we'll soon be a family of higher standing, if you still want to marry into our household, your dowry will have to be doubled. As she spoke, she nudged Qian Weidong with her elbow, signaling for him to speak. Only then did Qian Weidong turn around, looking down at me from his high horse. Apologize right now, and I might consider forgiving you. His tone was dripping with condescension, as if granting me a chance to apologize was some grand act of charity. Suppressing a laugh, I deliberately clasped my hands together and bowed toward the air. Oh, ancestors, forgive me, I must have been blind as a bat to have ever fallen for this scumbag who faked his death to swindle a pension. The surrounding customers stopped what they were doing and looked over curiously when Yalan immediately shrieked. What nonsense are you talking? You nearly drowned Wei Dong and publicly humiliated Xiaohong. Don't you think you owe an apology? Seeing the crowd pointing and whispering, Wang Jinhua raised her voice and said, let's hear what everyone thinks. This girl used to chase after my son relentlessly. Now that he's going to university, she's afraid people will say she's a toad lusting after a swan's flesh, so she's putting on airs instead. Qian Weidong chose that moment to put on a helpless expression, as if he were enduring an unreasonable woman. The clerk handed over the receipt for the blue bricks, and Qian Weidong instinctively reached out to take it. I snatched the slip and stuffed it into my pocket, sneering, college boy. Is that yours to take? What are you, a beggar? His face flushed crimson instantly. Chen Kaiwei, what do you mean by that? Mean by what? I asked with an innocent look. This is the receipt for my family's blue bricks. Wang Jinhua's eyes widened. Weren't these blue bricks bought for our family? I chuckled. Auntie, with all due respect, I paid for these bricks myself. How did they suddenly become yours? Qian Weidong's face flushed, then paled with anger. He clearly hadn't expected me to embarrass him so openly. Seeing this, Wen Yalan immediately grabbed his arm and said, Weidong, just ignore her, let's go look at something else. She deliberately steered Qian Weidong towards the luxury goods section, stopping in front of the mink hat counter. Wow, this hat is gorgeous, exclaimed Wen Yalan with exaggerated admiration. Picking up a mink hat and placing it on her head, the shop assistant quickly said, Comrade, this hat costs 220 yuan. Please be careful with it. 220 yuan, that was half a year's wages for a worker back then. Qian Weidong visibly flinched, but for the sake of his pride, he forced himself to say, that's quite reasonable. If you like it, go ahead and try it on. When Yalan shot me a smug glance and deliberately twirled in front of the mirror, suddenly, she let out a cry. The hat slipped from her hand and landed right on the nearby coal stove. With a sizzle, a black hole was instantly burned into the hat. The shop assistant's face fell. Comrade, you'll have to buy this hat now. Qian Weidong's face instantly turned ashen. 220 yuan, that was nearly his family's entire savings. He whirled around to face me, a flicker of calculation in his eyes. Kaiwei, he whispered in a commanding tone, hold off on buying the bricks for now, cover the cost for me first. Wang Jinhua sidled over and said in a patronizing voice, girl, this is your chance to prove yourself, help Weidong out this once, and I'll give my blessing to you too. When Yalan stood to the side, looking at me with a challenging glare that seemed to say, let's see you talk your way out of this one. I slowly pulled a stack of bills from my cloth bag. Every pair of eyes in the room locked onto my hands. A triumphant smile spread across Qian Weidong's lips as he reached out to take it. Excuse me, I said instead, turning to the clerk on the other side, I'll take this stationery set, and this canvas bag, yes, the kind college students use. The clerk was taken aback for a second, then quickly snapped to attention and efficiently wrapped up my purchases. Qian Weidong's face was a picture of pure astonishment. Chen Kaiwei, still playing tough, you even got my school supplies ready, but that can wait. Give me the money first today, I need it urgently. I counted the money without looking up. From Dunhuang, you're full of stories. Who said this was for you? I bought it for myself. Qian Weidong's face shifted through a series of expressions before he reached for the bag again. What does a country woman like you need this stuff for? Unhurried, I pulled a piece of paper from my pocket and unfolded it gently. What a coincidence. It's a letter of recommendation, just approved by the county. I, Chen Kaiwei, am reporting to the provincial university next month. Qian Weidong's face instantly drained of color. He snatched the paper and stared at it in disbelief. Impossible, he snarled. The people waiting in line were growing impatient. Comrade, this female comrade clearly doesn't want to spend money on you. How can you be so shameless and thick-skinned? It's like you don't understand plain language. The group's expressions darkened at the words, and they were about to start a commotion when the door to the supply and marketing cooperative was flung open. Qian Monsong stumbled in, his face ashen and deathly pale. Weidong, it's over, it's all over. He grabbed his son by the shoulders, his voice trembling. The county sent a notice, your university admission spot, it's been revoked. Qian Weidong stood frozen in place, as if struck by lightning. 5. Impossible. He snatched the notice, scrutinizing it over and over. His face turned from ashen to pale. then flushed crimson with rage. Secretary Chen must be abusing his power for personal gain. This is a vendetta. He whirled around to face me, his eyes blazing with fury. Chen Kaiwei, it must be your father who gave my spot to you. I deliberately packed the newly bought stationery into my canvas bag, not even looking up. Qian Weidong, have you lost your mind? The worker peasant soldier. University recommendation quota was approved by the county. I got into university by passing the national exam myself. My father is just a village party secretary. Which decision do you think he could possibly influence? Qian Weidong didn't believe it. He snatched the letter of recommendation from my hand, turning it over and over, muttering under his breath, impossible, this can't be. Wen Yalan panicked too. Leaning in to look, her face instantly turned ashen. Weidong, it really says Chen Saiwei's name on here. Qian Weidong jerked his head up, glaring at me with fierce intensity. How could you possibly qualify? You didn't even finish high school. I let out a cold laugh, pulled a report card from my bag, and slapped it on the counter. Open your damn eyes and look. I ranked third in the county-wide exam last year. That's a hell of a lot more legitimate than your recommendation, which you only got through the back door. I had kept it a tight secret, afraid he would feel burdened. When Yalan was horrified, her hand jerked, and the mink hat slipped from her grasp, landing right back on the coal stove. With a sizzle, a large patch was scorched. The sales clerk's face darkened. 220 yuan, pay up, now. 220 yuan, that was half a year's wages for a worker back then. Qian Weidong was flat broke, his face instantly turning ashen. Wang Jinhua immediately jumped out, throwing a fit. What are you yelling about? A lousy hat for a sky-high price. Are you trying to swindle us? Country folk. The sales clerk slammed the price list on the table and cursed. Open your eyes and look, and you pretend to be college students. Turns out the whole family's a bunch of good-for-nothings. The onlookers burst into laughter. Didn't you just say it was cheap? Now it's a fortune. Qian Weidong was mortified with shame and anger. When Yalan tugged at his sleeve, her voice trembling. Weidong, what do we do? Wang Jinhua tried to weasel out of it, but the manager threatened her directly. If you don't pay up, we're sending you to the police station. Wen Yalan, you're the one who broke the hat. By rights, you should pay for it yourself. Wang Jinhua's words left Wen Yalan stunned. What money did she have? The only reason a young woman like her would fool around with Qian Weidong was because he was a big spender who could support her whole string of younger siblings. If her own mother found out she'd caused such a huge mess, wouldn't she skin her alive? She suddenly shrieked hysterically. Oh, so now you're drawing a line between us, is that it? When your son pestered me at night to use my hands to help you, why didn't you? Before she could finish, Qian Weidong, who had been standing there dumbfounded, finally snapped out of it and rushed over to cover her mouth. Trouble just kept piling on. If word got out that he'd gotten a girl pregnant, his chances of going to university would be completely shot. In the end, the Qian family scraped together everything they had. They even pawned Qian Weidong's new leather shoes and Wen Yalan's floral dress, and still had to sign an IOU. Wang Jinhua, with her pent-up rage finding no outlet, turned her thoughts back to me. Chen Kaiwei, you stole my son's university spot. A curse on you and your whole family. A passing commune official sneered at my admission letter. The provincial university's computer science department only admits through the national college entrance exam. Worker peasant soldier students can't even apply there. How could they possibly have a replacement slot to pass down to you? Qian Weidong was thunderstruck. He muttered to himself, computer science, how could she? When Yalan shrieked, Weidong, my dress. The shop assistant was stripping off her floral print dress to settle the debt. In the end, it was Qian Weidong who made the decision. He stripped his father's undershirt and wrapped it around Wen Yalan's legs. The whole family, now sharing a single set of clothes, fled in utter despair. 6 At the crack of dawn, Qian Weidong was squatting under the crooked old locust tree at the village entrance, his spittle flying as he ranted. Party Secretary Chen is abusing his power. He stole my recommendation spot for his own daughter. They forced me into faking my death back then, all to make their girl look like a hero, just as a few idlers were egging him on. The accountant Zhang's youngest daughter suddenly piped up, Brother Weidong, is Cai Weijia still going to pay back the debt your family owes the brigade for building your house? Qian Weidong's face froze. He was about to blow his top when a cloud of yellow dust suddenly billowed up at the village entrance. The commune's green jeep screeched to a halt right under the locust tree. Team leader Wang jumped out, his face ashen, clutching a letter of accusation in his hand. Qian Weidong, someone has reported you for having improper relations with women. The villagers, eager for a spectacle, swarmed around. I squatted on the millstone, cracking sunflower seeds, and watched Qian Weidong's face turn from red to white. Like a dye shop in full swing. That's a damn lie, Qian Weidong retorted, his neck stiff with defiance. Who wrote this slanderous report? Team leader Wang unfolded the letter. It says you have a birthmark the size of a copper coin on your lower back, a red string tied to your belt, and the crowd erupted in an uproar. In this day and age, who else but a lover could know such a private matter? Qian Weidong was hopping mad with anxiety. Suddenly, he spotted me cracking sunflower seeds and pointed at me, shrieking, "It must be Chen Siwei's doing." I spat out a seed husk with a pft. Well, I never pulled your pants down, but someone sure did, and we all know who's guilty. I picked up all these juicy details from Wang Jinhua's gossip in my past life, but in this lifetime, I suppose only Wen Yalan, the one who shared a bed with Qian Weidong, would know. The anonymous letter was passed around the crowd, and someone who could read actually started reading it aloud. It even described the exact location of the attic where he had hidden the public grain reserves. Qian Weidong's face turned pale. He suddenly lunged at Wen Yalan. "Are you trying to get me killed, you bitch?" Wen Yalan shrieked and dodged away. "Bullshit. The letter also says you got Secretary Chen drunk to forge those commendation materials, tricking him into recommending you for the Worker Peasant Soldier University program. Didn't you say, enough?" Team leader Wang waved his hand. "Take them all away. A charge of hooliganism is enough to land you 10 years in prison." Wang Jinhua burst out from the cornfield to block their way, only to be knocked down by a rifle butt from the militiaman. Slapping her thigh, she wailed, "Your Honor, it was the Wen girl who seduced my son." Wen Yalan's mother lunged forward to claw at Wang Jinhua's mouth. "I'll tear your lying mouth to shreds. It's your son whose belt is looser than a wet noodle." Seeing his son about to be taken away, Qian Monsong suddenly shouted, "We admit it, we'll take her as our daughter-in-law right now." Trembling, he fumbled around his waistband for a long moment before pulling out a wad of cash. 150 yuan for the bride price. She moves in today. The rest we'll make up after the harvest. Team leader Wang frowned. "Old Qian, are you trying to settle this privately? Settle it publicly or privately, I don't care." Qian Monsong kicked his dazed son. "You beast, kowtow to your father-in-law." Now Qian Weidong was forced to bow his head and kowtow 3 times with a thud. Only then did Wen Yalan's father lower his shovel. Wen Yalan's mother was about to say something more when Qian Monsong glared at her. Does her brother not need to go to school anymore? Who would pay 50 yuan to marry a tramp from your family? Wen Yalan's mother instantly deflated. Suddenly, Wen Yalan clutched her stomach and crouched down, blood trickling down her trouser leg. "Oh dear, this looks like a miscarriage," exclaimed the women's director as chaos erupted on the scene. The foreman and his men cornered Qian Monsong. "Uncle Qian, your old house has been torn down for over half a month. Isn't it time to settle the wages?" Qian Monsong searched his pockets but could only produce a few crumpled banknotes. The foreman sneered, "We'll take goods instead." With a wave of his hand, several burly laborers rushed into the Qian household and carried out the cypress wood coffin. "Don't you dare touch this." Qian Monsong clung to the coffin with a death grip, the veins on his neck bulging. The foreman spat and cursed. "We only fronted the money because Secretary Chen guaranteed it. Now he's backed out. Are we supposed to live on thin air?" I jumped off the millstone and headed home. Wang Jinhua's pig-slaughtering whales chasing after me. Heavens above, what sin has my Qian family committed? Passing by the clinic, I heard Wen Yalan inside, weeping as if her heart were being torn out. Both children were gone. 7. The news that the Qian family was to hold a wedding spread through the entire village overnight, as if it had grown legs. One was the marriage between Qian Weidong and Wen Yalan. Despite the ugly scene they had caused, Qian Monsong was determined to go through with the wedding, gritting his teeth to silence the gossip. The other match was between Qian Xiaohong and Zhao Taizhu, the notorious living king of hell from the neighboring village. In my past life, Wang Jinhua had introduced this supposedly good match to my sister, all while pocketing a 50 yuan difference for herself. This time around, to squeeze out a bigger bride price, she actually pushed her own daughter onto Zhao Taizhu. The villagers were all abuzz, saying the Qian family had double happiness at their door. But anyone with eyes could see that neither of these marriages was on the level. At dusk, when the day's work was done, I squatted by the well platform, scrubbing my hoe. The iron scraped against the bluestone with a grating sound. My sister was passing by, carrying the slop bucket for the pigs, when she suddenly tugged at my sleeve. "Kai Wei," she whispered, her voice barely audible, and jerked her chin towards the persimmon tree. I looked up and saw Qian Xiaohong standing in the shadow of the tree. After just a few days, she looked like a ghost of herself. Her once full cheeks were sunken, and a few stray wisps of hair escaped her messy braid. Seeing me look at her, she twisted her fingers in her clothes and shuffled forward a couple of steps, her canvas shoes dragging two faint trails in the dirt. What is it? I clanged my hoe against the edge of the well. Qian Xiaohong's lips trembled. Suddenly, she dropped to her knees with a thud, hitting the sun-baked earth. The women nearby fetching water immediately slowed their pace. Her voice was hoarse, as if she'd swallowed charcoal. Please, just go to the abandoned house on the back hill and hear me out. It'll only take the time it takes to smoke a pipe. My sister grabbed my wrist. Don't go. Her fingers were ice cold. The memories came flooding back. In our past life, during the river work project, Qian Xiaohong came to my sister with the same red-rimmed eyes, saying there was a patch of wild berries on the back hill that were incredibly sweet. The result, my sister fell into a ravine and was bedridden for half a month. Meanwhile, Qian Xiaohong, sporting a brand new red hair ribbon, took my sister's spot in the county performance, and I, foolishly blind, believed it was all my sister's own carelessness. Kaiwei, sister. Qian Xiaohong suddenly threw herself forward, clutching my leg, her nails digging into my flesh through the fabric of my trousers. I'm getting married. You once said that when I married, you'd see me off like a beloved younger sister. In her past life, she wasted her youth and became a spinster, ending up married to a man on his third marriage, so I made the decision to keep her at home, ensuring she lived a life of comfort for the rest of her days. Thinking of this, my heart was a tumult of emotions. In this life, without my protection, she has no choice but to sacrifice herself, becoming a stepping stone for my brother. After work tomorrow night, I pried her fingers open. Get lost. Qian Xiaohong staggered to her feet, forcing a smile while tears still streaked her face. My sister was stomping her foot in agitation. She's definitely up to no good, sis. I pressed down on the back of her hand, where veins stood out, and whispered soothingly, I know. On the second night, a faint light glowed from the thatched hut in the mountains, accompanied by the muffled sounds of a man's heavy panting and occasional curses. That voice, who else could it be but Zhao Taizhu? Outside, the villagers holding torches exchanged uneasy glances. My father stood at the front, his face ashen. Qian Xiaohong pushed her way through the crowd and sneered, sneaking out here in the dead of night for a dirty fling. How disgraceful. Let's see which shameless hussy is out here seducing a married man. He looked at my father with a mocking grin. Party secretary, when my brother was just fooling around with your daughter-in-law a while back, you were ready to beat him or kill him. Now we've caught them in the act. You can't let personal feelings interfere with your duty, even if it's your own daughter. She should be tied up and sent to jail. My father gave her a meaningful look. Just as I expected, Qian Xiaohong didn't want to marry that living hell, but she couldn't defy her family. She blamed all her misfortune on me. If I, Chen Kaiwei, hadn't suddenly stopped being the sucker, how could she have ended up like this? So she tried to lure me into that living devil's bed, killing two birds with one stone. With the two of us tied together, wouldn't she be free from the fiery pit? At that moment, I was at the back of the crowd, slowly inching my way forward. Qian Xiaohong, who had been waiting to watch the show, saw me. Her face instantly turned deathly pale, as if she'd seen a ghost, and her lips trembled as she stammered, Chen Kaiwei. I stood in the firelight, watching her quietly, a cold sneer curling at the corner of my mouth. She could never have imagined that I, who should have been caught in the act with the king of hell himself, would now be standing before her. Inside was my father. Knocked his long-stemmed pipe against the ground, sprang to his feet, and barked the order, seize them. Qian Xiaohong's pupils contracted sharply. Wait, but no one paid any heed. Everyone surged toward the thatched hut, and I was shoved along in the crowd until I was right at the door. Bang! The moment the door was kicked open, a woman tumbled down from the Kong, her clothes in disarray. She looked up. It was Wang Jinhua. Qian Xiaohong's plan was undoubtedly her own idea, because if it succeeded, from today onward, I would inevitably be the one married off to the living king of hell, and the bride price would go to the Chen family. No one else in the Chen family would ever allow that 200 yuan bride price to go to waste, so Qian Xiaohong wouldn't tell anyone her plan, waiting until the deed was done. That's why, when I pretended to casually mention that there were old, collective-owned ginseng roots in the mountain hut, Wang Jinhua turned and headed into the mountains without a second thought. Once a woman fell into the hands of the living king of hell, it didn't matter if she was his future mother-in-law or not. The firelight illuminated Wang Jinhua's face, twisted in terror. She tumbled off the Kong, her clothes in disarray, teeth marks from Zhao Taizhu still visible on her chest, her hair a tangled mess like a bird's nest. Zhao Taizhu, dead drunk, fumbled with his trousers, muttering, "Little sister, let your brother have another kiss." A deathly silence fell over the entire room. Qian Xiaohong's face instantly drained of color, her lips trembling. Mother. Zhao Taizhu was jolted, mostly sober by the cry. He squinted, then spat. Damn it, it's an old hag. I've been cheated. Wang Jinhua froze for a split second, then shrieked, grabbing the tattered clothes from the floor to cover herself. It's not what you think. Qian Monsong charged out from the crowd, his face livid. He snatched the carrying pole by the door and swung it at Wang Jinhua. You slut, didn't you say you were going to your mother's to borrow rice? Wang Jinhua was knocked to the ground by a carrying pole, blood immediately welling from her forehead, clutching her face. She wailed. She didn't dare admit she'd come to steal the wild ginseng, nor could she explain how she'd ended up being dragged into bed by this living demon. Qian Weidong, who had been hiding at the back of the crowd, tried to slip away when he saw this, but several villagers blocked his path. Qian Weidong, your mother's in this state and you're just going to walk away. Qian Weidong's face darkened as he shook off the villagers' hands. What a disgrace, it's none of my damn business. Upon hearing this, Wang Jinhua jerked her head up, staring at her son in disbelief. Weidong, I did it all for you. If it weren't for scraping together your bride price, how could I ever have? Qian Weidong sneered coldly. For me, you slut, you've made it so I can never hold my head up in this village again, and you have the nerve to say it was for me. With that, he turned and walked away without a backward glance. Wang Jinhua stood rooted to the spot, stunned, as blood mingled with tears streamed down her face. Seeing this, Qian Monsong flew into an even greater rage. He grabbed the shoulder pole and struck again, shouting, You bitch, I'll kill you. The blow was devastating. Wang Jinhua let out a muffled groan, collapsed to the ground, and fell completely still. Someone in the crowd cried out in alarm. He's killed her. Only then did Qian Monsong panic. He dropped the pole and tried to flee, but a militiaman seized him. Qian Monsong, the man barked, You commit murder in broad daylight and think you can just run. Qian Xiaohong collapsed to the ground, watching helplessly as her father was dragged away. Her mother lay motionless on the ground, and her brother was nowhere to be seen. She suddenly lunged at me like a madwoman, but was held back firmly. Chen Kaiwei, it's you. This is all your fault. Pinned and unable to move, I leaned close to her ear and whispered, When you lured me up the mountain, did you ever imagine you'd be the death of your own mother? She shuddered as if struck by lightning, then let out a hysterical scream. You bitch, Zhao Taizhu, now fully alert and seeing the situation had escalated, immediately tried to distance himself. I never laid a finger on her. She threw herself at me. Many in the crowd curled their lips in disgust. Pa, not a decent one in the whole family. Qian Xiaohong finally broke down. She fell to her knees, wailing, Mother, wake up. But Wang Jinhua could no longer answer her. 9. The Qian family affair was the talk of the village for a fortnight, but gradually, people stopped mentioning it. Qian Monsong was convicted of murder. Word has it he was beaten daily in prison and didn't survive the winter. Qian Weidong and Wen Yalan seemed to have vanished off the face of the earth. Some say they were seen begging in the provincial capital, others claim they smuggled themselves down south. In any case, they never returned to the village. As for Qian Xiaohong, I heard that not only did that brute fail to pay the bride price, but he beats her every day. My sister added a handful of firewood to the stove, the flames illuminating her worried face. Auntie Li went to the neighboring village to trade for eggs the other day and saw her washing clothes by the river, her arms covered in bruises. I sprinkled a pinch of salt into the pot and said nothing. The horrific scene from my past life, my sister, beaten into a miscarriage by that brute, curled up in the woodshed waiting to die on that snowy night, haunts my mind. But then, my sister changed the subject. Kaiwei, school's starting soon, right? I've saved up over 100 eggs. Go sell them in town tomorrow and buy yourself a nice new outfit for school. My sister's eyes were glistening looking at the brand new roof of our house. I thought about how my father had the nodule on his lung removed, completely averting the tragedy of his previous life. But what about my sister? Our mother passed away early, and it was my sister who raised me. Now, it's my turn to repay her kindness. Sis, I pulled a form from the drawer, its pages rustling. It's the application for the provincial city's adult night school. I signed you up. I pressed the form into her calloused palm. You'll come to the city with me. You can just squeeze into my dorm at night. My sister's hand jerked. The edge of the form crumpled in her grip, her lips trembled, and she suddenly turned her back, her shoulders shaking. She was crying, but she bit down hard on her sleeve to stifle the sound. Just like when we were kids and she was starving but too afraid to say so. I'm already 25. Her voice was hoarse, the words barely forming. I can't even read properly. What university? I turned her by the shoulders and saw her face streaked with tears. In her past life, she cried just like this on her deathbed, saying her greatest regret was never learning to read or write. not even her own name properly. The night school specializes in teaching adults to read. I pulled out the embroidered pouch she made for me. Inside was 37 yuan and 80 cents neatly stacked, money she had secretly saved over the years. Sis, look how clearly you've kept track of every penny. You're already smarter than that phony college graduate Qian Weidong. My sister let out a choked laugh, but her tears flowed even harder. A loud clatter suddenly came from outside. We rushed out and saw father pushing the family's old 28-inch bicycle into the yard, a red silk ribbon tied to its handlebars and a brand new wicker trunk strapped to the rear rack. Dad fixed it up overnight, rubbing the grease from his hands and avoiding our eyes. He said, "You two girls can't very well walk all the way to the city." His voice trailed off, his own eyes welling up before he could finish. In the distance, the wailing sound of a Swona horn drifted over. The Qian family was holding a funeral procession. Wang Jinhua's coffin was as flimsy as cardboard. Qian Xiaohong, dressed in mourning clothes and trailing behind, was kicked by Zhao Taizhu. She stumbled and fell into a muddy pit. My sister suddenly gripped my hand tightly. "Kaiwei," she said, "I want to learn to read. I want to learn to use an abacus. I want to be like you." Her gaze traveled past the shabby funeral procession of the Qian family, settling on the distant green hills, as if to say, "I want to live a life worthy of the name." 10. The plane tree leaves from the provincial university covered the ground. Clutching my books, I walked across campus, mentally planning my shift at the women's shelter that afternoon. Since joining this organization, I've already helped over a dozen women who were victims of domestic violence and girls who had to drop out of school. The shelter is located in an old hutong in the west of the city, a small courtyard with gray brick tiles, and a wooden sign reading "Women's Home" hangs by the gate. As soon as I pushed the door open, I heard the sound of laughter and chatter coming from inside. "Kaiwei, you're here," station manager Sister Lee greeted me warmly. "Come quick, take a look. We just received a new batch of donated quilts." A few women were gathered together sorting through supplies, chatting and laughing. I was about to go over and help when, out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a frail figure huddled in the corner. The person wore a tattered padded jacket, with hair as dry and yellow as straw, head bowed as they mended an old garment. When she unconsciously raised a hand to smooth her hair, I caught a familiar glint in her weary eyes. It was Wen Yellen. My heart sank. "This is a familiar face," Sister Lee explained, following my gaze. "We found her near the dumpster last night, running a high fever and covered in wounds." Wen Yellen looked up, her clouded eyes widening abruptly the moment they met mine. Her lips trembled, and the needle and thread in her hand clattered to the floor. "Chen." Her voice was hoarse beyond recognition. A sudden, violent coughing fit seized her, and blood seeped through her fingers. The room fell silent instantly. Everyone's eyes turned toward us. I walked over and crouched down in front of her. "Wen Yellen." She flinched back like a startled rabbit. Her tattered sleeve slipped down, revealing an arm mottled with bruises. Sister Lee looked at us, puzzled. "Do you know each other?" "We're from the same hometown," I said softly, handing her a cup of warm water. Wen Yellen's hand trembled violently as she took the cup. Hot water splashed onto her gaunt hand, yet she seemed not to feel the pain. "What about Qian Weidong?" I asked. Her eyes suddenly went vacant. He's at the dump, said he might find something to eat today." The women in the room began whispering amongst themselves. That's when I learned that Wen Yellen had been brought in on the brink of death, beaten so severely her uterus had prolapsed. The doctor said she was covered in injuries and had also been diagnosed with late-stage liver cancer. "She's a pitiful soul." Her husband suspected the child she'd been carrying wasn't his and beat her daily. We urged her to divorce him, but she refused. She only came here to hide when the beatings became unbearable, and would go back the moment she felt slightly better. Sister Lee was exasperated by her lack of self-respect. "All right, enough about her." Sister Lee changed the subject, turning to praise me to the others. "Our Kaiwei is so promising now. A university student, and in the student council too. She's sure to become a high official someday." "Yes, I heard she's even getting a guaranteed spot in graduate school." "Not only is she beautiful, but she's also brilliant." Amidst the chorus of praise, Wen Yellen suddenly looked up, her face a mask of disbelief. "In my past life, it was clearly my liver that saved her two sons. Not only was she ungrateful, but she toyed with me my entire life, and she didn't even let me rest after I died. Whenever the kids so much as sneezed, she'd blame my bad liver for tainting her family's bloodline." When Yellen stood there, stunned, I couldn't help but say with regret, "Yellen, what a shame. My grades were never as good as yours." The words pierced her memory like a knife. It was true. Back in middle school, her grades really were better than mine. If her family hadn't favored sons over daughters and stopped her from studying, she could have. A strange glint flashed in her eyes before she buried her face between her knees. According to Sister Lee, when Yellen had slipped away Sometime during the night 11 Chen Kaiwei. A furious roar suddenly shattered the air. I had just stepped onto campus when I saw Qian Weidong, wearing a crumpled Dacron shirt with bloodshot eyes, charging through the school gates like a rabid dog. A security guard was chasing after him, shouting, "Stop, outsiders are not allowed in." He charged straight toward me, waving a yellowed piece of paper. "Everyone, be the judge. This woman is utterly ungrateful. I clothed and fed her. And now that she's gotten into university, she's turned her back on me." A crowd instantly gathered around. Seeing the onlookers, Qian Weidong hammed it up even more, beating his chest and stamping his feet as he cried, "I gave up my chance to go to university for her, and now she won't even lift a finger to save me. Give me 500 yuan right now, or I'll kill myself right here in front of you." "Oh, really?" I replied calmly, pulling a stack of documents from my canvas bag. "This is a certificate issued by the commune. It clearly states that Qian Weidong's recommendation was revoked for faking his death to claim compensation and for engaging in improper sexual relations." The surrounding students passed the materials around. Someone gasped, "There's even a medical report from the county hospital. When Yalan is 3 months pregnant." Qian Weidong's face instantly turned deathly pale. He lunged to grab the papers, shouting, "You forged this evidence, fake." I sidestepped and pulled another photo from my bag. "It's a picture of you and Wen Yalan in front of the supply and marketing cooperative, taken right during the period you claimed you gave up university for me." In the photo, Qian Weidong had his arm around Wen Yalan's waist, and they were locked in a passionate kiss. A sharp-eyed classmate suddenly shouted, "Hey, isn't that woman the lunatic who's always hanging around the school gate?" Qian Weidong panicked completely and actually knelt down in front of everyone, grabbing at my pant leg. "Kaiwei, I was wrong. It was all Wen Yalan who seduced me. Please, for the sake of all our years together feelings, I'd kick him to the curb. Don't make me sick." The crowd erupted, the female students flushed with anger, and someone shouted, "How does a beast like him deserve to be in university?" "Exactly. And he even slandered classmate Chen. Get him out of here." The furious students surged forward, shoving Qian Weidong out the door. He lost a shoe in the scuffle, shouting in a wretched state, "Chen Kaiwei, I hope you die a horrible death. I'll haunt you from beyond the grave." I stood on the steps, watching this beast who had ruined my family in a past life, now being tossed out of the school gates like a stray dog. Suddenly, a piercing shriek tore through the sky. "Qian Weidong, my mother said she saw how well I was doing in school and had changed her mind about letting me continue my education. It was you who secretly stopped it, wasn't it?" When Yalan charged out from nowhere, Qian Weidong scowled, glaring coldly at the madwoman. "So what if I did? Look at yourself. What makes you think you deserve to go to university? I never went, so why should you?" Suddenly, a cold glint flashed. A sharp pair of scissors plunged straight into Qian Weidong's heart. You. Qian Weidong looked down at the blood gushing from his chest, his eyes wide with disbelief. When Yalan laughed maniacally, white foam dripping from the corners of her mouth. "Give me back my university, give me back my university." She stabbed several more times until Qian Weidong collapsed on the ground like a ragged sack. By the time the security guards rushed over and restrained her, she was already foaming at the mouth. I closed my eyes, and the last words I heard at the end of my previous life echoed in my ears. Qian Weidong saying to the doctor, "Stop the treatment. Her liver can't be cut into any more anyway." When I opened them again, the sound of police sirens already filled the campus. Autumn wind swept fallen leaves across the bloodstained ground. I turned and walked toward the library, where my new textbooks, new classmates, and Kaiwei, the class monitor, caught up, panting. The night university called, "Your sister's enrollment is all set." I looked up at the azure sky. The 40-year nightmare was finally over. The end. Story 2. To save his one true love while I was undergoing an appendectomy, my heartless husband secretly donated one of my kidneys. I confronted him, demanding to know by what right. My husband fell silent for 2 seconds before stammering out a reply. "Honey, I forgot to tell you, Xia Shui urgently needed a kidney transplant back then, so." I slammed the phone down with a sharp click. "Ha, I see." Without hesitation, I pulled up lawyer Wang's number. "Wang, I've got a criminal case here and I'd like you to represent me." "Hello everyone, and welcome to Takata Story Studio. Today, I'm sharing an interesting new story with you all." Like a wandering ghost, I drifted back home after the fingerprint lock recognized me. A cold, mechanical female voice chimed, "Welcome home, home." After learning the truth at the hospital, this place was no longer my home. The living room was deathly still as I stood barefoot on the floor. A chill shot up from the soles of my feet to the crown of my head. Even the matching slippers I bought for us have gone cold. As if possessed, I dialed Chen Hao's number once more. The ringtone stubbornly rang over a dozen times. Just as I was about to give up, the call was finally Answered. From the other end of the line came a woman's voice, dripping with seductive charm. It was followed by a clear, bell-like laugh. It was a voice I knew all too well. It was Xia Shui, the best friend I considered as close as a sister. Immediately, Chen Hao's artificially gentle voice sounded. His tone carried a panic and guilt I had never heard before. Honey, what's wrong? Does the wound still hurt? How did the follow-up appointment go? What do you feel like eating? I'll order takeout right now. Before his words had even faded, in the background came the sizzle of stir-frying, accompanied by Xia Shui's coquettish complaints. How? Is the soup almost ready? I'm starving. Soup. I gripped my phone tightly, my knuckles turning white from the strain. I gently touched the wound on my abdomen. The pain was excruciating. No, thank you, I spoke, my voice as flat and still as stagnant water. Without waiting for another word, I ended the call. The quartz clock on the living room wall ticked. Each tick felt like a countdown to the death of my love. I walked numbly into the bedroom and opened the wardrobe. His clothes hung neatly on one side, giving off a strange, unfamiliar scent of cologne. I kept my eyes fixed straight ahead. I grabbed a few of my own clothes and stuffed them haphazardly into the suitcase. Skincare products, ID card, bank card, and then, there it was, the test results that sealed my marriage's fate. Absent left kidney, the stark black print on white paper, like a vicious scar that would never heal. Click, the zipper of the suitcase closed. Its sound deafening in the empty room. I walked to the entryway. I gently placed that set of keys, which once symbolized belonging, on the shoe cabinet. Beside the keys was our enlarged wedding photo. That's me in the photo, nestled in his arms, beaming with a happiness so profound it bordered on foolish. I took one last look, turned, and closed the door. The red numbers on the elevator began to flicker. 18, 17, 16. The elevator wall reflected my face, pale and unfamiliar, but there was not a single glimmer of light left in those eyes, only the ashes that remain after everything has been burned away. I walked downstairs. I looked up at the familiar balcony. Chen Hao, our marriage is over too. I hailed a cab and went back to my parents' house. Pushing open the creaky wooden door, the familiar aroma of a home-cooked meal washed over me. Mom peeked out from the kitchen, her apron still on. Seeing me dragging my suitcase, she froze for a moment. Sweetheart, what brings you home all of a sudden? Dad set down his newspaper, his reading glasses sliding to the tip of his nose. He studied my pale face, his brow furrowed. I tossed my suitcase by the door and collapsed onto the sofa. Chen Hao and I are getting a divorce. As the words hung in the air, the atmosphere in the living room seemed to freeze. Mom's rag fell to the floor, and Dad crumpled his newspaper in his hands. How could this be? Weren't you two doing just fine? Mom hurriedly sat down beside me. Did you have a fight? What young couple doesn't have their disagreements? We just don't get along anymore. I closed my eyes, not wanting to elaborate. The real reason is something I can't bring myself to say. I don't want my parents to worry about me. That stolen kidney, like a thorn, lodged deep in the heart. After a long silence, Father sighed. Since you've made your decision, we won't ask any more questions. Just come home. Mother was about to say something, but Father stopped her. For the next 3 days, I was a complete wreck. I holed up in my childhood bed, listening to the neighbors' roosters crow and dogs bark downstairs. Mom cooked different meals for me every day, but I had no appetite for any of it. On the morning of the 4th day, the phone rang. Chen Hao. I declined the call. It rang again. I kept hitting decline. After a dozen missed calls, my mom's phone rang. Mom, is Wan at your place? Why isn't she answering her phone? Chen Hao's voice came through the receiver, laced with a false sense of urgency. Mom looked at me, and I took the phone. Get to the point. My voice was ice cold. Honey, why did you leave so suddenly? Did I do something wrong? He was still putting on an act. I gently touched my side, where a dull ache still lingered. Chen Hao, how could you have brought yourself to cut out my kidney? On the other end of the line, silence. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice tinged with impatience. It's just a kidney, isn't it? You won't die from losing one. Are you really making such a big deal out of this? A kidney, it's just a kidney. Making a big deal. My heart has frozen over completely. Chen Hao, let's get a divorce. After hanging up the phone, I stared out the window at the plane tree leaves, a glaring, vivid yellow this autumn. Everything is withering away, including our marriage these past few years. 3. That afternoon, I went back to the hospital for a follow-up appointment. I had just reached the entrance of the outpatient building. 2 familiar figures came into view. Chen Hao, he was carefully supporting Xia Shui, dressed in a pale yellow dress with impeccable makeup. She looked nothing like a patient. I stopped in my tracks. Chen Hao saw me too, and his body visibly stiffened. Xia Shui, however, acted as if nothing was wrong. She clung to his arm and cooed in a sugary voice. How gee, I'm feeling a bit dizzy. Hold me tighter, won't you? Her voice was sickly sweet and deliberately raised. Chen Hao's gaze shifted between me and Xia Shui, and he cleared his throat awkwardly. Honey. You're here for a follow-up too. I didn't answer. It was only then that Xia Shui noticed me. A flicker of smugness crossed her eyes, yet she feigned a look of pleasant surprise. Oh, Sister Lin Wan, what a coincidence. She let go of Chen Hao's hand, walked up to me, her eyes rimmed red. Sis, I really can't thank you enough. If it weren't for your kidney, I might be. She trailed off mid-sentence, deliberately choking up, putting on a pitiful, delicate act, looking at her healthy, rosy complexion. A wave of disgust washed over me. Thank me. I let out a light, scoffing laugh. You're quite the actress. Xia Shui's expression froze for a moment before turning even more aggrieved. Sis, have you misunderstood something? How Ji and I really are just friends. Friends. My gaze swept over her hand looped through Chen Hao's arm, then over to Chen Hao's evasive eyes. What kind of friends? Friends with benefits. An awkward silence hung in the air. Xia Shui bit her lower lip, her eyes welling up with tears. I'm sorry. This is all my fault. I shouldn't have let Hao look after me. I've caused problems in your marriage. A married couple. Look at this scene. Don't they look more like a married couple? Xia Shui grew more and more upset as she spoke, until she finally broke down in tears. Passing patients and their family members cast sidelong glances, whispering among themselves. Chen Hao finally spoke, his tone laced with unmistakable impatience. Lin Wan, stop making a scene. Xiao Shiwei hasn't fully recovered yet. I can't just abandon her. You know she has no family here to look after her. How can we just abandon her? Then who's going to look after me? I gently touched the wound at my side, which still throbbed with a dull ache, and suddenly found the whole situation absurdly funny. Carry on. Then, I turned and walked away. Behind me came the sound of Xia Shui's sobs and Chen Hao's low, comforting words. Don't cry. Lin Wan has always been like this, spoiled since childhood, prone to throwing tantrums like a little princess. She loves me too much to leave so easily. She'll calm down in a couple of days, and everything will be fine. My steps faltered. Love you. I gave a bitter smile. I did love you once, but now the plane tree leaves at the hospital entrance were a glaring yellow, scattered everywhere by the autumn wind. Just like my shattered heart, it can never go back to the way it was. For the next morning, I was sitting in Attorney Wang's office, the top floor of the tallest building in the financial district. Attorney Wang was my high school classmate back in the day. He was not old, yet his eyes were as deep and still as an abyss, seeming to see right through a person. He listened to my account in complete silence. Only his knuckles tapped rhythmically, once, then again, against the tabletop, tapping with a steady, rhythmic beat. He rose from his seat and paced over to the window with hands clasped behind his back. He gazed down at the bustling traffic below. Old friend, I'll drop everything I'm doing to help you. He picked up a marker. He drew a triangle on the whiteboard behind him and wrote keywords at each of the 3 vertices. First, secure the evidence. Second, impose an economic blockade. Third, trial by public opinion. I nodded, feeling a sense of certainty. The same office, its desk strewn with files, photographs, and hard drives. Lawyer Wang's assistant, Xiao Li, slid a document across the table toward me. We've got the footage, all the internal hospital surveillance from the day of the surgery is right here. I opened it. The very first page clearly showed that my lead surgeon had been replaced on short notice, just 2 hours before the operation was scheduled to begin. The replacement was Dr. Zhao, a kidney transplant authority from another private hospital. This Dr. Zhao has 30 years of transplant experience and is top tier in the field. Attorney Wang tapped his finger on the photograph. A man like that wouldn't easily dirty his hands for money, unless the money is enough. Xiao Li immediately handed over another document. It was a bank statement from an overseas financial institution. Chen Hao, on the day before the surgery, transferred $1 million to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. The payee was none other than Dr. Zhao's son. $1 million. My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. So, in their eyes, one of my kidneys had a clear price tag. And then there's this. Attorney Wang didn't give me much time to collect myself. He produced a miniature recorder and pressed the play button. The voice that followed was Chen Hao's, achingly familiar. It flowed out from within, still so gentle. Dr. Zhao, my wife, her health has never been very good. I'm entrusting this surgery to you. Don't worry, Mr. Chen, a hoarse male voice responded. I'll handle it very cleanly. When your wife wakes up, she'll only think she had her appendix removed. Good, that's good. And what about Xia Shui? The transplant surgery will proceed simultaneously. Within 2 hours, it will all be over. The recording stops. In the office, a deathly silence fell. I closed my eyes, and when I opened them again, nothing remained in their depths but a bone-chilling cold. The chain of evidence is a perfect, closed loop. The gates to hell have been thrown wide open for Chen Hao. 5 Day 4 citing illegal transfer of marital assets as grounds. I applied to the court for an asset preservation order. Attorney Wong's team operated with the terrifying efficiency of a precision war machine, all in a single morning. All bank cards, stocks, and funds under Chen Hao's name, even the Riverside luxury apartment and the white Mercedes sports car he secretly gave to Xia Shui were all frozen and seized. 3 o'clock in the afternoon, sharp, Chen Hao was in the company's conference room, presiding over a crucial project meeting. He was dressed in a bespoke suit, his hair impeccably styled. He was holding forth with authority, basking in the admiring gazes of his subordinates. His phone vibrated. He glanced at the caller ID. It was his bank's VIP relationship manager. He picked up the phone casually, his tone laced with the condescension of someone in a position of power. "Speak, Mr. Chen, I regret to inform you that all accounts under your name have just been frozen by court order." Before the caller could even finish, all the color drained from Chen Hao's face. Immediately after, a second call came in, from the securities firm, the third call from the housing authority, the fourth call was from the car dealership. He was informed that the Mercedes he had just picked up for Xia Shui had been towed away by the court. The meeting room fell silent. All the subordinates stared wide-eyed. They watched as their deputy general manager, Chen, did it all in under 5 minutes. He plummeted from the heights, his face flushing red, then turning deathly pale, and finally ashen. "Mr. Chen, are you all right?" an assistant whispered. Chen Hao opened his mouth, but no words came out. Just then, the conference room door was flung open. His secretary came stumbling in, his voice trembling. "Mr. Chen, Chairman Lin is here, with the head office's audit and legal teams." My father's figure appeared in the doorway. He was dressed in a dark gray bespoke suit, his posture ramrod straight, his expression as still as deep water. His gaze didn't linger on Chen Hao for even a second, sweeping coldly across the room. Instead, the temperature in the entire conference room plummeted to freezing. "Chen Hao," his father finally spoke, his voice devoid of any emotion. "Effective immediately, you are relieved of all your duties within the company. The audit team from headquarters will conduct a thorough investigation into every single transaction you handled during your tenure." Dad, Chen Hao's voice trembled uncontrollably. Why is this happening?" His father did not answer him. Without so much as a backward glance, he turned and walked away. Behind him, a group of stern-faced auditors in black suits filed in. They proceeded directly to Chen Hao's office and began sealing documents and computers. Chen Hao stood frozen in place, like a puppet whose strings had been cut. His colleagues all averted their gaze as if he were the plague. Some had already begun quietly packing up their things, ready to distance themselves from him. The meeting ended on a sour note. He tried to hail a cab home, only to find that all his payment apps were frozen. He was penniless. The autumn sunset stretched his shadow long and thin. Standing outside his office building, Chen Hao watched the bustling, ceaseless flow of traffic and felt a profound sense of unfamiliarity for the very first time. Just 3 days ago, he had been the vice president of this listed company, driving sports cars, living in a mansion, and surrounded by beautiful companions. Now he had nothing. Colleagues passing by pointed and whispered, their hushed conversations like venom-tipped needles. They pierced his ears. Some people even pulled out their phones and started taking pictures of him. Chen Hao finally understood this was what they called social death, and this was only the beginning. 10 o'clock at night, I was in the study organizing the latest evidence materials sent by Attorney Wang when my mother knocked and entered. "Wan, Chen Hao's parents are here." Chen Hao's parents. I set down the documents in my hand, a cold sneer curling at the corner of my mouth. They got here fast. In the living room, Chen Hao's mother's unnaturally red-dyed hair looked particularly garish under the light. Her foundation was caked on like plaster. "Lin Wan, have you no respect for your elders, making us wait at the door for so long?" I descended the stairs, my heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Both of them looked up at me simultaneously. Su Milan flew into a rage instantly, jabbing her finger in my face as she started screaming, "You ungrateful wretch, our Xiaohao has been so good to you, and this is how you repay his kindness. Think you're so great because you have money. It's just a kidney. Our Xiaohao was trying to save a life. How can you be so vicious?" Her voice was shrill and grating, like fingernails scraping down a chalkboard. I watched her performance quietly, my expression completely unchanged. Chen Wuqing also stood up, his beer belly protruding prominently. He looked ready to demand justice for his son. "Shaolin, we've watched you grow up. Let's talk this through properly. How did things have to come to this? Besides, it's not like having one kidney makes any real difference. Like father, like son, they even say the exact same things." I finally laughed, the sound echoing through the empty living room. "If it's no big deal, why don't you two go to the hospital tomorrow and have one of yours removed?" Then, hearing me say this, Su Milan grew even more furious. "You little brat, How dare you speak to me like that? I'm your mother-in-law. As she said this, she moved to hit me. 2 bodyguards in black suits instantly appeared, blocking my path. Sue Mylan's hand froze mid-swing, her face turning deathly pale. What do you think you're doing? In broad daylight, are you actually trying to hit someone? I stepped around the bodyguards and walked over to the coffee table. He picked up the stack of documents he had prepared long ago and slammed them down heavily in front of Chen Wuqing. Take a look at this. Chen Wuqing picked up the documents with trembling hands, and Sue Mylan leaned in to look as well. It was a detailed statement of accounts. Over the 7 years since Chen Hao and I married, the money he has taken from me in your name. My voice was as cold as a knife's edge. The down payment for the house, 800,000, renovation costs, 300,000, Chen Wuqing's hospital fees, 200,000, the money for Sue Mylan's jewelry, 150,000. And then there's your precious youngest daughter, Chen Li Juan, tuition and living expenses for studying abroad, all told, 1.2 million. On top of that, all the various holiday allowances and support payments over the years. I paused, watching their faces grow increasingly pale. The total is 4,300,000. The living room was so quiet you could hear the ticking of the wall clock. Sue Mylan's lips trembled, but no sound came out. Chen Wuqing slumped onto the sofa, completely drained. The documents in his hand fell to the floor, scattering everywhere. It can't be. There can't be this much, he muttered to himself. Every single transaction is backed by bank transfer records and signed receipts from you. I looked down at them from my superior position. If you want to verify it, you can check the bank statement anytime. Sue Mylan finally found her voice again, but the previous arrogance was gone. But how said you gave that money willingly, voluntary? I sneered. Well, now I voluntarily want it back. Got a problem with that? You have 3 days. 4.3 million, I want every last cent back, otherwise, I'll see you in court. Chen Wuqing's face turned ashen. Shaolin, you're going to be the death of us. Where on earth are we supposed to get that kind of money? That's not a problem I need to consider. I turned to head upstairs, then suddenly remembered something and glanced back at them. Oh, right, I forgot to tell you something. Chen Hao is now suspected of intentional assault, and I'm going to sue him. Your precious son's life is basically ruined. With that, I walked upstairs in my high heels, leaving the 2 old folks standing there, stunned. From behind me came Sue Mylan's heart-wrenching sobs. Oh heavens, this is retribution, retribution. It's still too early for that. 7. The next morning, I arrived with Attorney Wang and 2 bodyguards. We headed straight for the VIP ward at City First People's Hospital. The elevator doors opened, and the hallway was filled with the smell of antiseptic. The nurses, seeing our entourage, nervously stepped aside to let us pass. Room 808. I pushed the door open and entered. The room was furnished like a 5-star hotel suite, with a huge floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the entire city. Xia Shui was reclining on the hospital bed. 3 professional caregivers surrounded her, providing massage and nutritional care. At the sound of the door opening, she turned her head, seeing it was me. A flicker of panic flashed in Xia Shui's eyes, but she quickly regained her composure, even offering a provocative smile. Sister, you're here. Her voice was sickeningly sweet. Thanks for the kidney. I'm feeling much better now. She deliberately stroked her own waist. Your kidney is working very hard inside me. I'd say it found a better owner. The orderlies looked at each other, unsure of what was happening. Ignoring her provocation, I walked straight to the bedside and gestured with a wave of my hand. Lawyer Wang immediately stepped forward and presented a court summons to Xia Shui. Ms. Xia Shui, you are suspected of conspiring with others to intentionally inflict bodily harm and steal human organs. This is a court summons. Please cooperate with the investigation. Xia Shui's smile instantly froze on her face. Her hands trembled as she took the summons. Her face grew deathly pale as she read the court seal and the charges. You, how dare you? I leaned down and whispered in her ear. How are you finding my things? Comfortable? Don't worry. I'll make sure it feels just as unsettled inside you. Xia Shui's body began to tremble, the fear in her eyes now impossible to conceal. You can't do this. I'm a patient. I'll die. Don't worry. I straightened up and smoothed my clothes. I won't let you die. I'm going to keep you alive, so you can watch yourself fall into the abyss, step by step. With that, I turned and left. I left behind Xia Shui, limp on the hospital bed, and the nurses scattered across the floor. As I reached the door, I heard her heart-wrenching sobs behind me. Good, this is only the beginning. 8. 3 days later, a video I never expected surfaced online. Chen Hao sat on a worn-out plastic chair, facing the phone camera mounted on a tripod. His right arm was still in a cast, while his left hand kept wiping the corners of his eyes. Beside him, Xia Shui was crying her heart out, with crumpled tissues scattered all over the floor. My fellow netizens, I am Chen Hao, his voice choked with emotion. Today, I want to tell you the truth. I was sitting on the sofa at home, holding a cup of coffee. I watched this free performance with great interest. Xia Shui snatched the microphone, tears streaming down her face as she spoke. You have no idea what Lin Shu is like at home. She's incredibly controlling. Chen Hao couldn't even buy a piece of clothing without her approval. She was always mocking me, saying I wasn't good enough for her, that I was just a freeloader. Chen Hao chimed in, his eyes flashing with resentment. For 7 years, I didn't even dare raise my voice in that house. The barrage of comments on the screen began to split. So that's what really happened. Looks like this guy really got the short end of the stick, but stealing a kidney, that's going way too far. Xia Shui pulled out a file folder and took several photographs from it. These are all pieces of evidence that Chen Hao was a victim of domestic violence. Look here, and here. In the photo, Chen Hao was bruised and swollen, looking utterly miserable. I almost burst out laughing. These photos clearly show injuries he got from a fight with someone else 3 months ago. I remember it clearly. I even went to the hospital with him back then. Xia Shui is just so pitiful. If she doesn't get the transplant soon, she won't make it. Chen Hao took Xia Shui's hand. When the doctor said she needed a kidney transplant and Lin Shu absolutely refused to donate, I truly felt hopeless. I begged her on my knees. I pleaded with her through tears. But she remained utterly unmoved. His voice grew more and more agitated. I had no choice but to resort to this. I know it's wrong, but I was truly out of options. Xia Shui leaned against his shoulder. I had no idea where the kidney came from at the time. I only found out the truth after I woke up, and I feel terrible about it. The number of viewers in the live stream was skyrocketing, and the barrage of comments was getting more and more intense. So it seems Lin Shu is really that heartless. Husband and wife are like birds in the same forest. When disaster strikes, each flies away on their own. But no matter how you look at it, stealing a kidney is illegal. I put down my coffee cup, picked up my phone, and dialed Lawyer Wang's number. Lawyer Wang, did you see that live stream? I saw it. Lawyer Wang's voice was calm. Mr. Lin, should I issue a clarification immediately? No rush. I watched the two of them still performing on the screen. Let the bullets fly a little longer. We'll hold a press conference tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the Jean Mao Tower. Understood. I'll make the arrangements right away. After hanging up, I settled back to enjoy the spectacle. Chen Hao had already begun presenting their fabricated chat logs, and me, I really did look like the villain in all this. Some viewers in the bullet chat started to speak up for them. Lin Wan has gone too far. What? Just because you're rich? Chen Hao was wrong, but you can understand why he did it. I turned off the live stream and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. The city's nightscape unfolded beneath me, with countless lights twinkling like stars. Tomorrow, I'll show you all what a real-life slap in the face looks like. The next morning, the press conference hall on the 36th floor of the Jean Mao Tower was packed to capacity. Reporters from major media outlets were in position early, their camera lenses trained on the podium. Camera flashes erupted in a relentless barrage. Like artillery fire on a battlefield, Lawyer Wang stood before the lectern in a sharply tailored black suit, his expression as stern as a judge's. Friends from the media, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to attend today's press conference. His voice echoed through the sound system, filling the room. In response to the false accusations made by certain individuals last night, we will address each one for clarification. The reporters in the audience began whispering among themselves, the incessant clicking of camera shutters filling the air. First, regarding the so-called domestic violence allegations, Lawyer Wang pressed the remote, and the large screen behind him lit up. The footage shows the surveillance video from our marital home. The timeline displays various points in time over the past few years. The living room, dining room, bedroom, almost every corner, except the bathroom, was recorded. These are the surveillance recordings from Mrs. Lin's home, covering every day since the marriage. Attorney Wang's voice was as cold as a machine. Please watch carefully and see who is assaulting whom. The footage began to play on screen. Chen Hao was smashing things in the living room, vases, picture frames, teacups. The floor was a complete mess, and I just sat on the sofa, watching his performance calmly. In another shot, Chen Hao was practicing how to make his face swell up in front of a mirror. He was pounding his cheek with his fist, blow after blow. A collective gasp rose from the audience. All of this so-called domestic violence evidence was fabricated by Chen Hao himself. Attorney Wang turned to the next page of the documents, and the timestamps perfectly match the photos he presented last night. A reporter raised his hand. Attorney Wang, how can we be sure of the authenticity of this surveillance footage? It has undergone forensic authentication. Both its integrity and authenticity have been confirmed. Attorney Wang's answer was airtight. If there are any doubts, we welcome any third-party institution to conduct a re-evaluation. The screen switches to the next set of evidence. Next, regarding the fabrication of the chat records, the technical back-end data of WeChat appeared on the large screen. It detailed the message timestamps, IP addresses, and device information. According to official WeChat data verification, all the chat logs Chen Hao presented were fabricated using screenshot forgery software. The authentic chat history is as follows. The real chat logs were displayed on the screen. In them, my tone was calm and caring, inquiring about Chen Hao's work and life, even taking the initiative to request leave to care for him when he was ill. Chen Hao's replies, however, were either perfunctory or non-existent. A murmur rippled through the press corps below, punctuated by a frantic crescendo of camera shutters, and finally, the most crucial piece of evidence. Attorney Wang's tone grew sharper, more severe. Regarding Xia Shui's claim of having no knowledge, a complete fabrication. A waveform of a recording appeared on the screen. This is a recording from 3 days ago, when Ms. Lin visited Xia Shui at the hospital. My voice came through the speakers. How are you getting on with your things? This was followed by Xia Shui's smug reply. Sis, you came. Thank you for the kidney. I'm feeling much better now. You know, it's working so diligently inside me. I should say, it's found a much better owner. A deathly silence fell over the press room. A few seconds later, the room erupted in gasps and the frantic clicking of camera shutters. This recording clearly proves that Xia Shui was not only aware of it, but took pride in it. Attorney Wang closed the folder. She is far from an innocent victim. A female journalist stood up. Attorney Wang, may I ask why Ms. Lin is not present today? Ms. Lin believes the lies are not worthy of a personal response from her. Attorney Wang gave a faint smile. The facts speak for themselves. After the press conference, the internet absolutely exploded. Netizens who were just last night sympathizing with the Chen Hao couple instantly switched targets. Holy crap, that plot twist was brutal. 9. The tide of public opinion has completely turned. It was as if overnight, everyone had forgotten the righteous indignation of the previous evening. I sat in my office, watching the constant stream of news alerts on my phone. Chen Hao's Weibo account had been overrun by netizens, with the comment section now a uniform chorus of vitriol. As for Xia Shui, that woman who once lay in her hospital bed so smug and triumphant, she now lacks even the courage to show her face. Mr. Lin, the hospital is on the line, the secretary said, pushing the door open cautiously. I looked up. Go on. Xia Shui's body is having a severe rejection reaction. Her condition is now critical. Rejection. I set down the documents in my hand and walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window. The streets below were a constant stream of traffic. Everyone was caught up in the hustle and bustle of their own lives. Who would care about the life or death of a petty thief? What else? All her assets have been frozen, and she can no longer afford the VIP ward. She's been moved to a standard room, and the hospital is pressing for payment. The secretary's voice trailed off. As for Chen Hao, what about Chen Hao? He blocked Xia Shui's number and posted a statement online saying he's cutting all ties with her. I turned around, a faint smile playing at the corner of my lips. Indeed, adversity reveals true character. Back when they wanted my kidney, they were the picture of a devoted couple. Now that a real crisis is here, their true colors show immediately. Mr. Lin, is there anything you need us to do? Nothing at all. I settled back into my chair. Just sit back and enjoy the show. 3 days later, I received a call from an unknown number. Lin Wan, it's me. The voice was as faint as a wisp of thread, choked with tears. Xia Shui. I didn't hang up, nor did I speak. I just listened in silence. Please, save me. I'm dying. Her voice was choked with sobs. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Oh, my tone was as flat as if I were discussing the weather. Wrong about what? I shouldn't have asked for your kidney. I shouldn't have been with Chen Hao. Please, forgive me. Xia Shui. I whispered her name. Do you remember what you said to me 3 days ago? Silence fell on the other end of the line. You said my kidney had found a better owner. My voice remained calm. And now, is this better master to your liking? Lin Shu, she suddenly exploded, her voice turning shrill. How can you be so heartless? We're sisters, after all. Sisters, I laughed. Would a sister steal her sister's husband? Would a sister trick her sister into donating a kidney? Would a sister flaunt her spoils in front of her sister? Xia Shui, you want my forgiveness? I stood up and walked to the window. Then pay your debt with your life. I hung up the phone. 2 more days passed. And then lawyer Wang called. Ms. Lin, there's a situation I need to report to you. His voice was grave. Chen Hao tried to ram your car last night. My coffee cup froze in midair. What? Thankfully, your driver, old Jean, reacted quickly enough to avoid a head-on collision. Chen Hao's car was forced to a stop by the bodyguards, and he's already been taken away by the police. I set the cup down, and the scene from last night after work flashed into my mind. There really was a car following me for a long time, but I thought it was just the paparazzi. How is he doing now? He's been charged with attempted murder. Attorney Wang paused. Ms. Lin, are you alright? Do we need to increase security? No need. I shook my head. A cornered beast will still fight. He won't get a second chance. After hanging up the phone, I recalled the scene from last night when the bodyguards dragged Chen Hao out of the mangled car. His face was covered in blood, and he was screaming like a madman at my car window. Lin Wan, you forced me into this. You've destroyed everything I had. I rolled down the window and looked at him calmly. In that moment, his eyes were filled with despair and resentment, like a beast driven into a corner. But Chen Hao, you were the one who betrayed our marriage first. You were the one who chose lies and deception first. I'm just letting you get a taste of what betrayal feels like. 12. With the trial approaching, Attorney Wang came to my office again to brief me on this situation. Based on the evidence currently available, Chen Hao faces at least 10 years or more in prison. He opened the folder. The lead surgeon, Dr. Li, is suspected of medical fraud and illegal organ harvesting. His sentence will be even heavier. Regarding civil compensation, I don't want any compensation. I interrupted him. Lawyer Wang, I want them to face the full, unrelenting force of the law. Lawyer Wang nodded. I understand what you mean. What about Xia Shui? Her condition is deteriorating. The rejection is getting worse. The doctor said if we can't find a suitable kidney donor. Lawyer Wang trailed off. Leaving the sentence unfinished, I stood up and walked to the window. The leaves of the plane tree below had turned yellow, falling one by one as the autumn wind blew past. Xia Shui, oh Xia Shui, you told me so triumphantly back then. My kidney found a better owner. It seems this kidney has chosen a better fate. It would rather die than continue working inside your body. 13. 3 days before the trial, the detention center called my office. Lin Shu, it's me. Chen Hao's choked voice came through the phone. I put down the document in my hand and leaned back in my chair. Chen Hao, you have the nerve to call me. Wan, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. His voice trembled with tears. I'm not a man. I'm a beast. It was all that bitch Xia Shui who seduced me. I let out a cold laugh. Now you call her a bitch. That's not what you said back then. I was a fool. She completely bewitched me. Chen Hao's voice grew more and more agitated. Wan, do you remember our first date? In that little cafe, you were wearing a white dress, like an angel, and then, my voice was ice cold. Right then, I knew I had to marry you. Wan, you've always been in my heart. What is Xia Shui? Anyway, how could she ever compare to you? I listened to his performance, my heart utterly unmoved. This man is still lying at a time like this. Chen Hao, do you really think I'd believe that? I swear to God. His voice grew urgent. Shushu, please. For the sake of the time we spent as husband and wife, give me a chance. I'll leave with nothing. I'll work my fingers to the bone to repay you. I fell silent for a few seconds before replying flatly, I'll think about it. After hanging up, I watched the sunset outside the window, a mocking smile curling at the corner of my mouth. Oh, Chen Hao, do you really think I'm still that naive girl? The next morning, Xia Shui's mother came to see me. Her eyes were red and swollen, her clothes were disheveled, and she looked utterly haggard. The moment she saw me, she dropped to her knees with a thud and clung to my leg. Miss Lin, please, I'm begging you, save my daughter, she pleaded between ragged, tearful sobs. Shui is fading fast. The rejection is getting worse. The doctor said she could go at any moment. Get up and talk, I said coldly, staring at her. I won't. She clung even tighter. Miss Lin, the fact that Shui received your kidney, it's fate. I beg you, in light of this connection, to let her off the hook. We'll sell everything we own to compensate you. I had someone pour her a glass of water, then sat back down on the sofa. First, she stole that kidney. I never gave it to her. My voice was calm. Second, whether she lives or dies is none of my concern. And third, if you harass me again, I'll have you charged with trespassing. Xia Shui's mother was taken aback by my coldness. She rose to her feet, trembling. Miss Lin, how can you be so heartless? I laughed. She's using my organs and expects my forgiveness. That's the funniest joke I've ever heard. The bodyguard entered and escorted her out. Watching her stumble away, I took a sip from my teacup. That evening, I summoned Lawyer Wang to my home. Mr. Wang, I've given it some thought. Perhaps we can give Chen Hao a chance. Lawyer Wang paused for a moment. What do you mean? If he can take full responsibility for all charges in court and testify that Xia Shui was the mastermind, I will Consider issuing a letter of understanding. I set down my teacup. Go and relay that to him. Attorney Wang nodded. Understood. And what about Xia Shui? Reach out to her as well, I said, standing up and walking to the window. Tell her that if she can provide more evidence of Chen Hao's crimes, economic crimes, for instance, she might be able to turn state's witness and get a reduced sentence. A flicker of admiration passed through Attorney Wang's eyes. Miss Lin, this move of yours, all's fair in love and war, I said, glancing back at him. They chose to betray us, and now they'll face the consequences. 2 days later, Attorney Wang called, his voice brimming with excitement. Miss Lin, both parties have agreed, he said, unable to contain his enthusiasm. Chen Hao agreed readily, thinking you still had feelings for him. As for Xia Shui, she handed over all the evidence of Chen Hao's embezzlement while abusing his position. I hung up the phone, poured a glass of red wine, and sat on the balcony watching the night view. A classic case of dog-eat-dog was about to unfold on the day of the trial. I wore a black suit and sat in the first row of the public gallery when Chen Hao was brought into the courtroom. He had clearly lost a lot of weight, with sunken eyes and a stubbly beard. His gaze held a look of expectation and ingratiation. Xia Shui was wheeled in, her face sallow and her body emaciated. When she saw me, a flash of venom passed through her eyes. The judge struck the gavel, and the trial began. Defendant Chen Hao, how do you plead to the charges brought against you in the indictment? Chen Hao stood up and began to speak, his voice choked with tears. Your Honor, I am guilty. I am profoundly guilty. He then turned to look at Xia Shui. But I must state for the record that all of this was orchestrated by Xia Shui. Xia Shui jerked her head up. What are you talking about? I'm not lying. Chen Hao pointed at her. You were the one who told me Lin Shu had kidney disease. You contacted Dr. Li. You planned the whole thing, making me trick Lin Wan into the surgery. I was just blinded by your beauty and lost my head for a moment. A wave of commotion rippled through the courtroom when it was Xia Shui's turn. She struggled to rise from her wheelchair, a wild glint flashing in her eyes. Chen Hao, you ungrateful bastard. Her voice was shrill and piercing. Who was it that swore to get revenge on Lin Shu? Who vowed to bring down the Lin family? She pulled a stack of documents from her bag and slammed them violently onto the table. Your Honor, Chen Hao abused his official position to embezzle 30 million in public funds. Here is all the evidence. He never loved me. He was only using my illness to swindle the Lin family out of their fortune. You bitch. Chen Hao completely lost control. If you hadn't seduced me, how could I have ended up like this? You're nothing but a jinx. I seduced you, Xia Shui sneered. Who was the one who pursued me? Who was the one who suggested we run away together? And now that there's trouble, you want to pin all the blame on me. The two hurled accusations and curses at each other in the courtroom. It tore the pathetic shreds of love between them to pieces. The judge repeatedly banged the gavel to restore order. As the jury's expressions grew increasingly grim, I sat in the public gallery, watching it all unfold like a riveting drama. Xia Shui pointed a finger right at Chen Hao's face and lashed out. You hypocrite. It was you who said Lin Shu wasn't good enough for you, that she had nothing but money. And now you're putting on this act of devotion. Chen Hao, his eyes red, shot back. And what about you? Weren't you just after my money? If I hadn't bought you a house and a car, would you have even been with me? I'm with you because of love, ha ha ha. Chen Hao laughed hysterically. You love my money, now that I'm broke. You're trying to finish me off, watching those two lovebirds, now bitter enemies, tear each other apart in court. A faint, almost imperceptible smile played on my lips. Chen Hao, Xia Shui, this is the price of betrayal. You used each other, deceived each other, and now you will finally destroy each other. And I only need to watch quietly as this farce draws to a close. 14. The judge's voice echoed through the courtroom. We will now proceed to the closing statements. The entire courtroom fell silent. With all eyes fixed on the judge's bench, the judge flipped through the case file and looked up at me. Ms. Lin Shu, as the victim, the court wishes to know if you are willing to issue a letter of forgiveness for the defendant's crime. Chen Hao whipped his head around, a final flicker of hope burning in his eyes. His lips trembled as he tried to speak, but the bailiff stopped him. Xia Shui struggled to push herself up from the wheelchair, her eyes, sunken from illness, fixed on me with an intensity like a final prayer. I rose slowly, the click of my heels echoing sharply on the courtroom floor. A profound silence fell over the courtroom. Everyone waited for my response. I stepped up to the microphone, adjusted its height, and cleared my throat. Your Honor, my voice rang out, clear and resonant, cutting through the courtroom. I refuse to issue any letter of forgiveness. Chen Hao's face instantly drained of color, his mouth agape like a fish out of water. For a criminal who has lost all humanity, I continued, enunciating each word with Deliberate force, my only demand is this, punish them to the fullest extent of the law. Show no mercy, Lin Shu, Chen Hao suddenly erupted, breaking free from the bailiff's grip and leaping to his feet. You lied to me, you vicious woman, you said you would consider it. The bailiffs immediately moved to restrain him, but he continued to struggle frantically, roaring at me, you can't do this to me, we loved each other once. I turned around and looked coldly at him, pinned to the chair, enunciating each word clearly, Chen Hao. I never said I would forgive you, I only said I would consider it. I paused, a sarcastic curl lifting the corner of my mouth. I've made up my mind, I want you to sit in that cell and really think about your life. Chen Hao completely broke down, tears and snot streamed down his face as he sobbed like a child. No, please don't, Lin Wan, I know I was wrong, I swear I know I was wrong. Xia Shui also slumped in her wheelchair, her mouth repeating the same words over and over, my kidney, her voice grew fainter and fainter, until it was almost inaudible. The judge rapped the gavel, the defendant will remain quiet. On the third day after the trial concluded, the court issued its verdict. The presiding judge stood up, holding a thick legal document. After deliberation by the collegiate bench, the judgment is as follows. Defendant Chen Hao, you are found guilty of intentional assault, attempted murder, and embezzlement. For these combined offenses, you are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment, deprived of political rights for life, and all of your personal property is to be confiscated. Chen Hao fainted on the spot and was carried out by the bailiffs. Defendant Xia Shui, you are found guilty of intentional assault and are hereby sentenced to 15 years in prison and fined 500,000 yuan. Defendant Dr. Li, you are found guilty of intentional assault and the illegal trade of human organs. You are hereby sentenced to life imprisonment and deprived of political rights for life. The gavel fell with a heavy, dull thud. I stepped out of the courthouse in the afternoon. Sunlight filtered through the plane tree leaves, casting dappled patterns on the ground. 15. Attorney Wang caught up with me. Ms. Lin, are you satisfied with the verdict? Very satisfied, I said, stopping in my tracks and glancing back at the courthouse. Justice may have been delayed, but in the end, it was not denied. A week later, I received a phone call. Ms. Lin, Xia Shui's rejection reaction has worsened in prison. The voice on the other end was calm. The doctor says she doesn't have much time left. Holding my coffee, I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window in my office. What about her family? Her mother tried to apply for medical parole, but it was denied. Her charges are too severe, after all. And, the voice on the phone trailed off, and your refusal to provide a letter of leniency will significantly impact the reduction of her sentence. I understand. I hung up the phone and took a sip of coffee. Xia Shui, you've been living with my organs for so long. It's time to give them back. 1 month later, Chen Hao's mother came to see me, accompanied by several of his relatives. Miss Lin, I'm begging you, my son knows he was wrong. The old woman knelt at my doorstep, pleading, please, have mercy on him. I watched them from the second-floor window and dialed my lawyer's number. Attorney Wang, please file for a restraining order. A restraining order, yes, it prohibits any of Chen Hao's relatives from approaching my residence or workplace. Violators will be reported to the police. Half an hour later, a security guard approached them holding the court-issued restraining order. Everyone, this is a court-issued restraining order. You must leave immediately, or we will call the police. The old woman still wanted to say something, but upon seeing the court seal on the restraining order, she was ultimately helped away. Watching their staggering figures from upstairs, I felt not a shred of sympathy when your son tried to do me in. Did he ever imagine this day? 3 months later, I received notification that the embezzled funds from Chen Hao had been recovered. 30 million, not a single cent less. I donated the entire sum. Legal aid fund for female victims was established, dedicated to helping women who have suffered betrayal and trauma. While signing the donation agreement, the foundation director asked me, Miss Lin, why are you making this donation anonymously? Because I don't need anyone's gratitude, I said as I signed my name on the agreement. I'm just doing what I believe is right. 1 year later, at a charity gala, I stood in a corner of the venue, wearing a champagne-colored gown and holding a glass of red wine. Ms. Lin, lawyer Wang approached with a smile on his face. You're even more radiant than before. Is that so? I turned to look at him. Perhaps it's because I've finally become the person I wanted to be. That foundation is running very well and has already helped over 200 female victims. Lawyer Wang raised his glass. I'd like to propose a toast to you. I gently clinked glasses with him, and the red wine swirled, creating beautiful ripples in the glass. After the banquet, I stood alone on the hotel rooftop, gazing down at the city's glittering nightscape. My new life. It begins. The end. That's the end of the first story. I hope you enjoyed it. The next one will be even more exciting, so let's keep going together. I took on the notorious playboy, Shinsai. Everyone thought I was in love with him. He skipped class and got into fights, while I covered for him by copying lecture notes. After 3 years of being his devoted follower, pouring my heart and soul into helping him get into a top-tier university, he dumped me right before the semester started. He looked down on me from his high horse. I know you've liked me for a long time, but your head is always buried in your books. Compared to Hanya, you're just too rigid. Let's break up. I want to be with Hanya. Everyone was waiting to watch me fall apart. I glanced at the extra 50 million in my bank account and said with genuine sincerity, "All right, congratulations." No one knew that the only reason I put up with him unconditionally was because his mother paid me an obscene amount of money. Now that the money's here, it's time for me to go. 1. He got dumped by the campus heartthrob, and all she said was congratulations. She hung up in under a minute. Just like that. Is she so upset she's lost her mind? Doesn't look like it. She's too calm. It's more like she's been waiting to get dumped for ages. As the words hung in the air, someone cautiously glanced at Shinsai. He had his arm around his new girlfriend, but his handsome face was dark and stormy, clearly displeased. Quickly changing tack, they said, "How many years has Suyun been pining after young Master Shen? We've all seen it. There's no way she's truly indifferent. She's probably just bottling it all up inside. I guarantee it, within 3 days, she'll come crawling back, begging young Master Shen not to abandon her." Shinsai's gloomy expression softened a little. "If she comes back to beg me, I might consider forgiving her. It depends on what she does." I was completely unaware of their discussion, dragging my suitcase as I hurried to the train station. Even if I had heard their mockery, I would have just given a cold, faint smile. If it weren't for my parents' belief that education is useless for a daughter, and that she should marry young for a bride price, if my college acceptance letter hadn't been torn to shreds, and if I hadn't been beaten half to death by my alcoholic father, and if Shinsai's mother hadn't found me right then and made her offer, promising that if I could help Shinsai get into a top-tier university, she would not only cover my high school tuition but also give me 50 million, I would never have spent those years trailing behind the school bully Shinsai, his ever obedient, ever-dutiful lapdog. For 3 whole years I used every means possible to transform him from a rebellious underachiever into a top student, successfully getting him into a top-tier university. Now that the mission is accomplished, I can finally take the money and leave. I couldn't be happier. Why on earth would I be upset about him getting a new girlfriend? From the very beginning, my only goal was to fight my way out of hell and reclaim a vast, open world for myself. Love has never been a part of my life. After the semester started, I never showed up at the university that accepted me. My parents wouldn't let me off the hook. After all, a student who gets into a prestigious university commands a hefty bride price. If I'm leaving, I have to leave for good. Over the 3-month summer break, I took the IELTS exam and reached a B2 level in French. I successfully completed the study abroad application procedures. Just as I was boarding my flight to Paris, Shinsai sent a text trying to reconcile. "Why did you block all my contact information, Suyun? Haven't you thrown enough of a tantrum all summer? Even if I'm with Hanya, we can still be friends. Stop this nonsense and unblock me." Every word still dripped with that same condescending tone, as if he was certain I'd come crawling back to him, tail between my legs, just like I had for the past 3 years. No matter how selfish he was or how callously he trampled on my feelings, I simply pulled out the SIM card, snapped it in 2 with a flick of my fingers, and tossed the pieces into the airport trash can. I discarded it all, the card, along with all the humiliation, scheming, and the past too painful to look back on. The plane tore through the sky, drowning out all my previous life. Later, my best friend told me that Shinsai had left comments on all my old social media accounts. The messages were all the same. "Are you done throwing a tantrum? It was just a relationship. Was it worth getting so angry over? Add me back, now," and so on, she said. At first, Shinsai was certain you'd come back to him. When you didn't, he gradually grew irritable. Sometimes, just hearing your name was enough to make his face darken. It felt like I was listening to someone else's story, not stirring a single ripple within me. With the 50 million from Mrs. Shen, I started a new life in Paris. I enrolled in a top design school, immersing myself in language, culture, and a demanding course load. Everything was a new challenge, but there was no Shinsai to appease, no suffocating family of origin, just brushes, blueprints, and boundless hope for the future. The years slipped by in the blink of an eye, nurtured by sweat and talent. The jewelry I designed began to make its mark at major fashion weeks, winning several prestigious international awards. I was also sent back to my home country as Lumina's newly appointed chief designer. tasked with expanding the Asia-Pacific market the first day back home while grabbing lunch at the restaurant downstairs from the branch office. A hesitant voice called out from behind me, "Soo-yeon, is that you?" I turned around and saw a girl who looked somewhat familiar. She looked like Yang Xiaoqin, the girl who used to sit in front of me in high school. Her eyes widened as she looked me up and down without a hint of subtlety, her gaze filled with astonishment and disbelief. "Oh my god, it really is you. You've changed so much," shedding the timidity and the desperate need to please from my high school days. Time and experience had bestowed upon me a calm and composed demeanor. "It's been a long time, it really is you. What a coincidence," Yang Xiaoqin exclaimed with excitement. "There's a class reunion tonight, right upstairs at that Cloud Peak restaurant. So many classmates are coming, and Shinsai will be there too. You absolutely have to come. No one will recognize you." Shinsai, that name felt like a distant symbol, one that hadn't crossed my mind in a very long time. I was going to politely decline, but then I thought, some things aren't worth going out of your way to avoid. Alright, I spent the whole day tied up with the handover at the new company, barely able to catch my breath. By the time I remembered the party, it was almost time. Too lazy to go back to the hotel to change, I headed straight upstairs to the Cloud Summit private room in my casual clothes. Pushing open the heavy door, I was met with a wave of boisterous chatter. The room was spacious, and the large round table was surrounded by a full house. My gaze instinctively swept across the room and, in an instant, locked onto the man at the head of the table, the center of everyone's attention. Shinsai. He had matured since high school, his handsome features more defined, dressed in expensive casual tailoring. His posture was relaxed and effortless, yet he remained the center of attention. A young, pretty girl was glued to his side, her makeup flawless and her outfit bold. But it wasn't Hanya from back then. It seemed his bad girlfriend had gotten an upgrade, too. After a brief lull, a drunk guy was the first to recognize me. "Holy shit, look, young Master Shen, your little lapdog, Soo-yeon, is here." That shout instantly set the whole private room ablaze. All eyes, filled with shock and schadenfreude, snapped in unison toward me. Shinsai's head snapped up when he saw me standing in the doorway. His pupils contracted sharply. The effortless, languid expression on his face instantly froze, replaced by shock and an inscrutable complexity. The girl beside him immediately sensed his change. Her hand tightened on his arm as she looked at me with a scrutinizing, hostile gaze. "Soo-yeon." I paid no mind to the whispers and stares. I walked straight over and took the empty seat next to Yang Xiaoqin, then calmly poured myself a glass of water. "Soo-yeon, long time no see." A classmate named Wan Qian, who was dressed to the nines, was the first to speak up. "I heard you didn't go to college back then." "Well, I suppose that makes sense. How could your family ever have afforded the tuition? So, where have you been working all these years? Don't tell me the rumors are true and you married some old man. And looking at your outfit today, it's quite casual, isn't it?" She deliberately emphasized the part about marrying an old man, causing a few of the girls nearby to cover their mouths and snicker. "I've been living abroad for a few years. I just got back," I replied flatly, not really wanting to elaborate. "Oh, abroad," another guy, Li Chong, chimed in, his tone dripping with exaggerated sympathy. "It's tough for returnees these days, isn't it? You could get away with some less than legit work over there, but that stuff's illegal here. We're old classmates, after all. Have you found a job yet? Need us to put in a good word for you? My uncle's company still needs a clerk. The requirements aren't high, just basic computer skills. The pay isn't great, but at least it's a proper job. It's certainly better than your old." He deliberately drew out his words, his tone heavy with implication. "Yes, yes," Wang Qian chimed in immediately, her agreement dripping with false sincerity. "Foreign men might all like Asian women, but it's mostly just for fun. Soo-yeon, we go way back as classmates. If you're in a tight spot, just say the word. Your situation, I mean, you didn't go to college, and you don't have many decent clothes. You might not make a good impression at an interview. How about I take you shopping for a couple of proper outfits sometime? If money's tight, I can spot you. It's just, you used to be top of the class. It's a real shame to see you like this." Shinsai remained silent, only his fingers tightened slightly around the glass, his gaze fixed heavily on me. His new girlfriend, the one named Shou Ting, finally couldn't hold back any longer. She let out a derisive snort, leaning forward slightly with an air of condescending pity and undisguised contempt. "Soo-yeon, is it? I've heard of you. I heard you used to chase after my Sai like a lovesick puppy, completely obsessed. You did his homework, copied his notes, and even covered for him with the teachers. You must have gone through a lot." She paused deliberately, savoring the look of eager anticipation on the faces of the classmates around her. At least you had the sense to know you and Shino were worlds apart, with no future together. So you ran off on your own, though it seems things haven't worked out so well for you, have they? Now, CE is the young master of the Shin Group. As for me, I've just taken over the family's fashion brand and I'm busy negotiating a collaboration with a top international design firm. If you're in a tight spot, we can lend you a hand. I took a sip of water calmly. No, thank you. Zhou Ting shot me a dismissive glance, her tone laced with boastfulness. You probably have no idea what I'm capable of. Have you heard of Lumina? It's the new French accessible luxury jewelry brand. Their chief designer is a genius who won an international award in Paris. She's incredibly talented and very mysterious. I had to pull a lot of strings just to get a connection. If she agrees to design a collaborative jewelry series for my brand, sealing this deal would absolutely take the fashion world by storm. When that happens, I could toss you a few crumbs just by lifting a finger. The crowd immediately erupted in gasps of awe and flattery. I know. Lumina, their designs are so incredibly tasteful. I hear that designer is absolutely top tier. With a killer eye, he doesn't even glance at ordinary people. Miss Zhou's connections are incredible. To be able to hire such a high-caliber designer is truly impressive. Only someone like her is worthy of standing by young Master Shin's side. Zhou Ting lifted her chin with pride, basking in the flattery from the crowd. This was precisely the reaction she had hoped for when she made that remark. What's that designer's name? She's incredible. Someone asked curiously. Her English name is Eileen Su, but she's actually Chinese. Zhou Ting kept on enthusiastically singing the designer's praises. I hear she's quite young, but incredibly talented and holds a very high standing in the French design world. For a small brand like ours to get her on board is certainly no easy feat, but I'm confident we can do it. As she spoke, she leaned affectionately towards Shinsai. Sai, don't you agree? Shinsai gave an absent-minded in response. His gaze remained fixed on my face, his eyes smoldering with what seemed like hatred, refusing to lower his head or utter another word. The others were even more ruthless in trampling me underfoot, all to curry favor with Zhou Ting. I simply picked up my water glass, took a small sip, my expression utterly unruffled. Just then, the door to the private room was gently knocked. A young woman in a business suit, clutching a thick stack of files, peeked into the room, her face a mix of anxiety and deference. Ms. Zhou, sorry to interrupt, I brought the urgent documents you requested for the Lumina project. Also, regarding the designer. Hearing this, Zhou Ting pressed immediately. What about them? Did the designer get back to us? Are they willing to meet and discuss this in detail? Her voice was brimming with anticipation. The assistant, holding a stack of files, nodded. I met the designer today, but she has plans tonight, so we scheduled a meeting for tomorrow. Hearing the assistant personally confirm that she had met the elusive designer and set a time for tomorrow, a brilliant, triumphant smile instantly bloomed on Zhou Ting's face. Perfect. She turned to Shinsai, her eyes sparkling with triumph. Sai, see, I told you it would work. I'll definitely win her over tomorrow. The surrounding classmates immediately erupted into enthusiastic flattery. Miss Zhou, your move is truly in a league of its own. Impressive. Truly impressive. We'll all be counting on your guidance from now on. President Zhou, young Master Shin is a lucky man to have found such a capable partner in Miss Zhou. Amidst the flattery, Zhou Ting's vanity was immensely gratified. Her gaze drifted lightly over me, sitting quietly in the corner. By the way, Xiao Zhang, are there any basic job openings at the company lately? Something like janitorial work. She paused, casting a meaningful glance in my direction. That classmate, Su Yun, helped my boyfriend so much back then. I heard she doesn't have a proper job these days. Since we were classmates, I thought I'd help her out by finding her a stable position. The private room fell silent for a moment, followed by an even louder burst of laughter and murmurs of agreement. Oh, Miss Zhou, you absolutely mustn't. It's good to be kind-hearted, but that sort of person, and her family, you really don't want to get involved. Exactly. You have no idea how bad it was when she ran off without a word. Her parents came to the school and made a huge scene, throwing tantrums, blocking the principal's office, wailing and carrying on, insisting the school had kidnapped their daughter. They even got the local news reporters involved. The whole spectacle, TSK, it was just utterly mortifying. Exactly, her whole family is like that, completely unreasonable. Miss Zhou, your design firm is just getting off the ground. This is a critical time. What if her parents show up at your office making a scene and demanding to see her? What would you do then? Upon hearing this, Zhou Ting's face took on a deeply apprehensive expression. Oh, is that so? Well, I'm terribly sorry then. Su Yun, you see, it's not that I don't want to help you, It's just that my design firm is in its infancy, the foundation isn't solid yet, I simply can't afford the drama. I can't invite trouble like you and your family into my life. After saying this, she deliberately leaned closer to Shinsai, as if getting near me would bring her some kind of bad luck. Shinsai's gaze was fixed solely on me. This time, the corner of his mouth twitched slightly, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end, he just scowled and swallowed his words. Everyone's eyes were on me, their gaze is a mix of schadenfreude, superiority, and contempt. I don't understand why she's so keen on dumping work on me yet. He remained perfectly calm, repeating the refusal he had just delivered. No need to trouble yourself, I have a job, thank you. Zhou Ting sighed, that job of yours, you should just quit. Being young and pretty is an asset, but it's easy to get sick doing that long term. The crowd snickered. The young assistant laughed too, but when she looked at me, her professional expression suddenly froze. The thick stack of urgent Lumina project files she was clutching slipped from her grasp with a clatter, crashing heavily to the floor and scattering pristine white pages everywhere. The private room fell abruptly silent. Zhou Ting's face was a mask of displeasure. What are you doing? Can't you even hold on to a few files? But the young assistant paid no heed to her scolding, pointing a trembling finger at me. She let out a terrified gasp. Designer Sue, what are you doing here? Chapter 2. The air seemed to vanish in an instant. Every expression of clamor, mockery, and schadenfreude froze on their faces. The smug, triumphant smile on Zhou Ting's face stiffened. What did you say? She whirled around to face her assistant, her voice rising to a shrill, cracking pitch. Who are you calling a designer? The young assistant flinched at Zhou Ting's sharp rebuke, her face turning pale. Flustered, she bent down to gather the documents scattered across the floor, apologizing to me repeatedly with unmistakable panic in her voice. I'm so sorry, Designer Sue, I didn't know you were dining here. I'm so sorry to bother you. I'll clean up these files right away. Designer Sue, the classmate who had just been mocking me for marrying an old man now looked like his eyes were about to pop out of his head. He repeated the title instinctively, his face a mask of confusion and disbelief, which Designer Sue, the assistant's movement of picking up the documents paused. She looked up, swept a confused glance at Zhou Ting, and then cautiously looked at me. It's the very person our CEO Zhou has been trying so hard to secure a collaboration with. The Asia-Pacific regional head and chief designer of the Lumina brand, Ms. Eileen Su Yun. Boom. The words exploded like a thunderclap in the dead silence of the private room. Everyone's expression changed drastically in an instant. Wan Qian, who had just been judging me with an air of superiority, now stood with her mouth agape, wide enough to catch flies. The faces of the surrounding classmates instantly fell, from looking down on and disdaining someone at first, to suddenly rushing over to greet them with fervent enthusiasm. Now, oh my god, Designer Sue, you're actually the chief designer at Lumina. Holy cow. I always said Designer Sue was top of the class every single year back then, with such extraordinary poise. You could tell at a glance she was destined for greatness. That's incredible. To be the chief designer at an internationally top-tier brand, now that's real talent. Ms. Sue, your outfit is the epitome of quiet luxury and sophistication. A world-class designer's taste is truly in a league of its own. Ms. Sue, remember me, it's Zhang from high school. I sat right behind you. You've really made all your old classmates so proud. The stream of flattery grew louder, even more sycophantic and over the top than the praise heaped on Zhou Ting moments before. They were all scrambling to cozy up to her, completely forgetting the cutting remarks they had made about her and her family just minutes earlier. Zhou Ting's expression had gone beyond mere displeasure. Her suggestion to assign me cleaning duties just moments ago had instantly become a joke. As for Shinsai, he snapped out of his initial shock, his handsome face still tense, but he finally spoke, uttering his first words to me. Su Yun, I never expected you to still be this impressive. His new girlfriend, Zhou Ting, standing beside him, might as well have been invisible to him at that moment. I watched the dramatic scene unfolding before me, listening to all those insincere compliments. A growing sense of irony and emptiness settled in my heart. Just then, a sour, resentful voice, dripping with palpable imbalance and malice, abruptly cut in. It was Wan Qian. So what if you've become some hotshot designer now? Su Yun, your leech-like parents are infamous. They caused a huge scandal back then, completely shaming our school. Now that you've made it, do you really think they'll leave you alone? They've probably already caught the scent and come knocking. No matter how much money you make, it'll never be enough to fill those two bottomless pits. Frankly, I doubt you'll even be able to keep your designer position for long. The words struck like a poison barb, hitting the exact sore spot I least wanted touched. I picked up the glass of water in front of me and took a small, deliberate sip. No matter how unfortunate my family background may be, that was a past I had no choice in, but the life I lead is a path I've carved out for myself, step by step. Every penny I've earned, every step I've taken, has been honest and with a clear conscience. As for how secure my position is, that's none of your concern. I set down the water glass and stood up. This class reunion, saturated with hypocrisy, snobbery, and malice, is utterly tedious. Sorry, I have to go. With that, I grabbed my coat from the back of the chair and turned towards the private room's door. Wait, Soo-Yun. A tall figure suddenly blocked my path, carrying a familiar scent. It was Shinsai. He pulled me over, cornering me in the stairwell, his eyes fixed intently on mine. Why did you leave without a word back then? Why did you block me on everything? I found the why did you abandon me look on his face rather amusing. A faint smile touched the corner of my lips. My tone is flat as if I were stating a simple fact. The mission is complete. There's naturally no need to stay in touch. Mission. Shinsai's brow furrowed tightly, as if he either completely failed to grasp the meaning of the word, or simply refused to understand it. He took a step closer, his tone carrying a confidence that bordered on obsession. Soo-Yun, stop being so stubborn. You left because I got together with Hanya, didn't you? You must have been so heartbroken and upset that you ran off abroad, right? He even tried to find a hint of sadness in my expression, but there was nothing. He suddenly said with seriousness, actually, I've been looking for you for a long time. You've always held weight in my heart. He didn't finish his sentence, but the emotion in his eyes was almost overflowing. To be honest, there was a time, in those rare moments when he wasn't being a complete jerk, like when he'd furrow his brow slightly while listening intently to me explain a problem, or when he'd fall into an awkward silence as I tended to his wounds after a fight, that I did feel a faint, fleeting flutter of attraction. But that tiny spark was utterly crushed, time and again, as he and his pack of good-for-nothing friends made a joke out of my simp status, and as he shamelessly enjoyed my devotion while scornfully calling me rigid. I looked at him, my gaze clear and calm, and told him, word by deliberate word, Shinsai, my leaving has absolutely nothing to do with who you date, and I need to be perfectly clear with you. The only reason I ever got close to you was for your family's money. Impossible. Shinsai's voice suddenly rose, sharp with anger and a trace of barely concealed panic. You're lying, Soo-Yun. You're not that kind of person at all. For 3 years in high school, how many times did I try to give you money or buy you things, and you refused every time? You wouldn't even accept a pen from me. How could you possibly be after money? The way he cited those examples was utterly naive, as if those details were irrefutable proof that his judgment was correct. Looking at his laughably innocent expression, I couldn't help but let out a low chuckle. You really are naive. What do you mean by that? I stopped looking at him, walked around his rigid figure, and left without a word. Just as I was about to leave, his voice still called out from behind me, Soo-Yun, I know you have your pride, just give me some time, I'll sort things out with the people around me, I'll give you an answer. A real confession. I didn't look back, I didn't pause, I didn't even give it a second thought. 3. What happened next was, as expected, no surprise at all. Some well-meaning old classmate of mine must have tipped off my parents, who have the keen sense of scavengers, about my return to the country and my newfound wealth. A few days later, my parents showed up, their attire completely out of place in the upscale office building, their faces etched with vulgar greed. Sure enough, they appeared right outside my company's building. Soo-Yun, you ungrateful girl, now that you've made it big, you've forgotten all about your own parents, you ungrateful wretch, we raised you for nothing. You hid abroad all these years and never sent a single penny home, now you're some big shot designer and think you can just ditch us. Not a chance. Everyone, come and see this heartless creature. She's draped in gold and jewels while leaving her own parents to starve. How much is your monthly salary now? Hand it all over. Give it here. That's the Soo family's money. My father was pounding on the reception desk like a common thug. My mother sat on the ground, wailing and slapping her thighs, her face smeared with tears and snot. Her performance was crude, yet devastatingly effective. Their greedy eyes, like hooks, were locked onto me as if I were a walking gold mine. A security guard tried to intervene, only to be shoved aside by my father, who was throwing a full-blown tantrum. The scene descended into utter chaos. Just then, Shinsai appeared, holding a large bouquet of roses. He saw the commotion before him, frowned, and strode over quickly. Uncle, aunt, please calm down, this is the office. It's not a good look. Soo-Yun's position is different now, making a Scene like this is bad for her, let's talk this through properly. He turned to me, his gaze carrying a reassuring I'll handle this calm. Soo-yeon, don't be afraid, they just want money, let me talk to them, whatever they ask for, I'll cover it for you. You, brother Sai, a coquettish yet aggrieved voice rang out. Zhou Ting had appeared, unnoticed until now. She hurried over to Shin Sai and affectionately linked her arm with his. Her gaze swept over my parents, who were making a scene, before settling on me, a malicious curve lifting the corner of her mouth. Oh, Sai, why are you still taking her side? Zhou Ting's voice was pitched perfectly, loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. You've been fooled by her for years, and you're still in the dark. She deliberately paused, savoring the sudden gleam of greed in my parents' eyes and the look of abrupt confusion on Shin Sai's face. Only then did she speak out loud. Let me tell you about Soo-yeon. She never liked you in the first place. She only got close to you because your mother paid her 50 million to help you get into university. Once the job was done and she had the money, of course she just up and left. All that nonsense about being heartbroken and hiding abroad, a complete lie. She took the 50 million overseas to live it up and build a fancy career as a designer. Now that she's successful, she wants nothing to do with her deadbeat parents who'd only hold her back. It's so sad for your parents, after raising that daughter with all their hard work. She turned around, pocketed the entire 50 million for herself, and didn't leave a single penny for them. 50 million. My father's eyes instantly bulged wide, his breathing grew heavy, and he was practically drooling. You wretched girl, you really took 50 million, hurry, hand over the money, that's my money. Oh my god, 50 million, hand it over now. My mother stopped her wailing, scrambled up from the ground, and lunged at me with a gleam in her eyes. As for Shin Sai, he froze on the spot. He stared at Zhou Ting in disbelief, then whipped his head around to look at me, his eyes filled with the searing pain of utter deception and betrayal. The carefully prepared bouquet of roses slipped from his unconsciously loosened grip. It hit the ground with a thud, scattering its delicate petals everywhere. You, his Adam's apple bobbed violently. A final struggle of accusation and bitter reluctance. Soo-yeon, did you really take that 5 million from my mother back then? Was your kindness towards me really just about the money from the very beginning? He pushed aside my frantic parents, who were still screaming about the 5 million, staggering closer to me, his eyes rimmed red as if tears were welling up, his voice a desperate, ragged cry. Tell me, was all that care, those notes, all the help you gave me, was it all fake? Was it all for the money? Answer me. A deathly silence fell over the hall. Every eye in the room was fixed on me. I offered no explanation, felt no anger, not even a flicker of emotion. I simply met his bloodshot gaze with calm composure. Then, under the watchful eyes of everyone, beneath Shin Sai's look of utter despair, I gave a slight, gentle nod. Yes, those words extinguished the final glimmer of light in Shin Sai's eyes. He staggered back a step, his face deathly pale, as if all his strength had been drained from him in an instant. Did you never have any feelings for me at all? I answered truthfully. Yes, I did. But the moment you made a joke out of me, I realized you weren't worthy of my affection. I didn't look at him again, nor did I pay any mind to my frantic parents behind me. I called for security and had all the troublemakers escorted out. Just as I expected, my so-called parents wouldn't let their cash cow go without a fight. It started with endless harassing calls and abusive text messages. Then, they somehow found self-media journalists who ambushed me outside my office building, live streaming the whole scene on their phones. International designer Soo-yeon, you ungrateful wretch, you abandoned the parents who raised you and kept the 50 million all for yourself. Then, they went crying and wailing to the District Women's Federation, accusing me of forgetting my parents now that I've grown my wings. Uninformed accusations and insults began to appear online. Unfortunately for them, they underestimated me. I was no longer that helpless little girl at anyone's mercy. My legal team promptly issued strongly worded cease and desist letters and public statements, and swiftly submitted the relevant evidence to the court. Simultaneously, the professional PR firm I hired began steering public opinion and revealing the truth. The most devastating counterattack was the witness I brought forward. My high school homeroom teacher provided a detailed account of how my parents obstructed my education back then. Several elderly neighbors who watched me grow up also confirmed the long-term domestic abuse I suffered at home since childhood. One neighbor, an older woman, even pounded the table in outrage. It's heartless. Before Soo-yeon even turned 18, her parents tried to sell her off to an old widower from the next village for a bride price. That old man was even older than her own father. If Soo-yeon hadn't been clever and run away fast, she would have been ruined. The forensic injury assessment report served as irrefutable proof. Public opinion flipped in an instant. In the end, I severed all ties with them, cutting off the parent-child relationship, and finally found true freedom. Zhou Ting found Shinsai in a dim, noisy corner of a bar. Sigh, Zhou Ting rushed over, her heart aching, and tried to snatch the liquor bottle from his hand. Stop this, look at the state you're in, is she really worth it? A woman like Su Yun, seeing you like this, it breaks my heart. Shinsai lifted his head, his vision blurred by drink, and looked at the impeccably made-up Zhou Ting. Her face etched with concern. Breaks your heart, he slurred. The words, his gaze fixed intently on Zhou Ting. Then tell me, Zhou Ting, he leaned in close, his breath heavy with the smell of alcohol, and asked, enunciating each word, do you like me because of my money, too? Zhou Ting was taken aback by his question, a flicker of panic flashing in her eyes before she quickly masked it. Siue, how could you think that of me? Of course not, I like you for who you are. It has nothing to do with money. Eager to prove her sincerity, she even reached out to take his hand. However, Shen Siyue abruptly brushed her hand away. Oh, is that not it? He sneered. Then tell me, your company lost the chance to partner with Lumina, and now your cash flow is about to dry up. Why are you coming to me now? He paused, looking at Zhou Ting's instantly pale face and evasive eyes, and understood everything in an instant. Get out, he pointed at the door. All of you, get out. Finally, in a fit of humiliated rage, Zhou Ting stamped her foot, snatched up her bag, and stormed out of the bar. Shinsai slumped into the sofa, his head splitting with pain. For a fleeting moment, it felt as if he had been transported back to that blindingly bright high school corridor. A girl stood in their path, stubbornly blocking him and his gang of troublemaking friends who were about to skip class for a fight. She wore a faded, even patched school uniform, a cautious smile on her face, her hands clutching a workbook tightly. Her voice was so clear it felt like she was right beside his ear, tinged with an awkward concern. Shinsai, please don't get into a fight. How did he respond back then? He pushed her away impatiently, called her a busybody, mocked her as a nerd, a pauper, a rigid bootlicker, and then swaggered off amidst his friends' jeering laughter. Actually, a long, long time ago, when he first entered the school, he had thought she was special. Su Yun was the perpetual top student in her grade, the model student praised by teachers, yet her poverty and those heavily patched clothes also made her the butt of jokes among certain classmates. Shinsai was the golden boy, the center of attention, the one everyone adored. He liked Su Yun, yet he was also painfully aware of others' opinions, terrified of being mocked for actually liking that poor, nerdy bookworm, that secret affection, which even he himself hadn't fully acknowledged, ultimately warped into the same cruel pattern as everyone else's, escalating into relentless bullying and contempt. He naively believed that no matter how absurd he was, no matter how he trampled on her feelings, Su Yun would always be there waiting for him, just a finger snap away. Shinsai laughed, then cried, he truly didn't deserve my affection, and I, Su Yun, had long since left this farce about my family and my past behind me. Under my leadership, Lumina's business in the Asia-Pacific region has been advancing with unstoppable momentum. My unique and vibrant design philosophy quickly captured the favor of the high-end market. A series of successful product launches and impressive sales reports have continually solidified my standing and reputation. I firmly believe that only by reaching a sufficient height can one attain absolute freedom. Indiana. The past, Su Yun endured 3 years of hardship to earn her ticket out of hell. Today, Su Yun is using her talent and hard work to pursue her dreams in this vast world she now calls her own. The end. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll be bringing you new and exciting content every week, so don't miss out. Feel free to share your thoughts and feelings in the comments below. Let's discuss. Remember to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Thank you all for your support, and we'll see you next time.